OTB AM.
Brought to you by Avantcard Reward Plus Credit Card. Powered by MasterCard. Straight up better than your current credit card. Avantcard DAC is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland.
It's 7:30 on this Friday morning and you're very welcome along to OTB AM. It's Eoin and Anthony Moyles with you until 9:30 this morning, and plenty of GAA coming up between now and then. We've got Shane O'Donnell, the Clare hurler, coming up at around 8 o'clock, looking ahead to the Munster final. Diarmuid Lyng then will be with us to preview the other provincial final, Wexford against Kilkenny in Leinster. Plenty coming up as well in terms of the round 3 football qualifiers and the Women's World Cup as well. You can tweet us at Off The Ball, or you can comment on the stream if you happen to be watching on Facebook or YouTube this morning. Anthony Moyles, how are you?
Morning, Eoin. How are you doing?
Quiet week in Meath GAA.
Yeah, very little going on. Really, just the hangover after the drubbing last Sunday.
When you were in the
press, I finally got over.
When you were in the press box last Sunday, did you realise that there was almost a bigger story developing downstairs?
Yeah, I got wind of it all right, a little bit. I didn't realise all that was said, but I just heard that a question was asked and that it wasn't received too well.
Yesterday, Kieran Donaghy and Ger had a bit of a back and forth about who was in the right, who was in the wrong here. What's your take on it all?
You're going to think I'm being biased, of course, but okay, so I can see both sides of the argument, obviously. If you're a journalist and you're doing your job, you ask questions, and it's a valid question with the hurling championship on this Sunday. But I think there is that, okay, and that's.
Do you think it is a valid question?
It is a valid question. There's no problem with the question, shall we say, but there's a time and a place to ask the question. So the same way as, to an extreme level, you're at the funeral of a friend of yours whose wife has just passed, and you ask him, when you think of setting up with the next missus. Like that's not a question you ask at that moment in time. It's just not. Now, this is just not a question to ask. Andy McEntee has stood on the sideline watching this game. He feels that there's 47,000 people peering down on him. He's tried to prepare as best he can. I've no doubt that he would have thought that the team could win the game, or at least have a seriously good rattle at Dublin. He's seen those plans all fall around him. Andy is a very proud, very competitive character, a very passionate character. So you have all of that consuming him. He goes into a press conference, which is difficult enough, okay? You've fellas asking you and you're trying to knock off the question. You're probably searching in the last 10, 15 minutes in your head, what do I have to say here? What can I say? What should I say? You're trying to think about the following couple of weeks with the qualifiers, of how you get your team back up. All of those various different factors that are being thrown into the mix. You're getting through that, and then you get asked a question like that, probably from someone, and I don't know this, but there may have been history there before, because the whole thing about local GAA correspondents, they're there all the time.
It's an intense relationship.
Correct. He may have written articles about the team or about Andy before that Andy may have found to be, let's say, just not the greatest towards him. So there could have been previous there,
which we don't know that, but
came to the fore, right? So regardless of whether there was or there wasn't, I think the question just didn't need to be asked at that moment in time. First of all, it's not Andy's choice whether he releases players. It's down to the player. If I'm playing for that team and I'm playing hurling the following weekend for whoever it is, and Andy says, listen lads, we're going to do a weekend and I'd rather you don't tug out, I'm going to say, well, I want to tug out. And you can go back there to pressure being applied on players or whatever it is, but it's not necessarily his fault. So it was a bit of a poke the bear type question. Jimmy Gagan will be well aware of the actual implications and will be well aware of the facts with regard to releasing players and all that stuff. So I definitely think it was a poke the bear. And Andy is not and by right, and from what I know Andy a long time. He is a very passionate fella, and sometimes it spills over. He is a human being. He reacts in a certain way, and I think at that particular time, pressure and everything else. And I'm not saying it should be forgiven, but I think he reacted in a very human way. We're not all robots. At certain times, we all lose the head for whatever particular reason. And when there's pressure being applied in a situation like obviously what happened last Sunday, disappointment, frustration, etc., it happens. Now, the second incident outside the bus...
That's the key point here, isn't it?
Yeah, well, the second incident outside the bus, I'd say, was who knows what went on in the dressing room, first of all. There could have been words in the dressing room between team members. There could have been words in the dressing room between squad members. Dressing rooms after the fact can be quite dangerous places because the manager tries to get out ahead of something maybe. You know, might let the players shower. You might sit everyone down. I don't know if this happened, but I'm just trying to kind of paint a picture. And then you try to talk about the game. And then also, you know, look forward to the next 2 to 3 weeks and try to maybe build the team up. So first of all, you have to get over your own personal disappointment and you have to take a stance. Maybe you've seen things in the game that have really disappointed you, but you have to park those. Maybe certain things that they try to do during the game weren't done by certain players and you're really disappointed that you put those players on the field. But you have to, in a group setting, try to get, you know, an air of confidence or even a kind of a North Star that you have to look at. So we all have to kind of refocus on our next goal, which is obviously the qualifiers. But maybe words were said. So maybe it was even more inflamed when he left that area. Maybe something was said between a backroom member. I don't know. So you can't really say, oh, because it was an hour later, he should have been nice and calm and happy, and he shouldn't have reacted like that. I think when he went back out, maybe he'd been thinking on it even more and getting more annoyed about it. And yes, you know what, I'm sure Andy would be the first to say, yeah, I should have calmed down in that stage. But again, when he sees the individual in question, obviously, you know, passions are reignited, and you know, obviously he confronts the Jimmy Egan and says what he says, which isn't great, right? It isn't great. But at the same time, you know, he is in a situation. I think he's in a. It's pressured. You know, I mean, intercounty football and hurling management is a pressured situation. You're putting a massive amount of stuff in, and when you see it not going right, when there's a level of expectation, not a massive expectation, but when there's a level of expectation, maybe more of a level of expectation from yourself on how you think it's going to work out, and it doesn't, there's obviously going to be disappointment. And we saw a side to Andy, which we've seen in many other intercounty managers, and indeed many people. And you know, like, I mean, maybe the way to do it, I don't know if there's an apology on the way or whatever it is. Could the Meath Chronicle and could the player or the man in question, could he have treated it differently? Would I have done it? I probably would have. I would have just said, listen, you know what, he lost a head in the moment. I'm done. And I might give him a call during the week and say, listen, Andy, I didn't mean to ask that question, and open the door for him to say, and I apologise for reacting the way I reacted. Because, to be honest with you, it hasn't helped. It has not helped. Like, I mean, you know, I think I saw you earlier on, or during the week, you were saying that it's kind of taken the focus away, but it hasn't really. It's if anything, they can't just work away now in the scenes, right? Mm-hmm. You know, there'll be more questions heaped on Andy and his behaviour, and you know, kind of paradoxically then it'll be looking down at the team, you know, and impacting on the team.
And also the post-mortem, should they crash out around 4 of the qualifiers, maybe a little harsher, even though the result could be exactly the same and it could have no bearing on it. So
correct.
That is certainly a negative element. I just wanted to get that out of the way at the very top of the show this morning, since we hadn't had you in studio since. And just to round it all off, if you did miss the shot clock yesterday morning, here's Kieran Donahue's take.
It's a bad timing for that question, Joe. I know, right, you're a journalist, that's fine. There's time and a place, I think, for that type of question. And do the whole media room, does he really need to find out right there and then off the Meath manager who's after losing his Leinster final, can players play in a club hurling game next week? It's a bad question, it's bad timing of it. No, hear me out. I think it's bad question, it's bad timing. Could Andy McEntee have held his tongue and reacted better? Of course, but he comes out and he sees the same guy that's asked that stupid question, which he thinks is a ridiculous question because he said that. Now he sees him talking to a few of his players. He's like, what questions is he asking these guys? Is he asking them about, can hurlers play? Are they going to give an answer that's going to get it? And them looking for an apology, and it even getting out that far. This should have been nipped in the bud straight away. Yeah, the shot clock every Thursday morning here on OTB AM. You can watch that full discussion back on youtube.com/offtheball. The other thing we wanted to play you this morning, and as a Tottenham Hotspur fan, Anthony, you will get a great kick out of this. Anybody who tends to laugh at Arsenal in general is going to like this. This is their preview, I think, for the upcoming season. Have a look at this.
What are you saying, bro? What do you think about the season, man?
Trust me, bro, I can't wait for the new season. How's that looking?
Looks fresh, bro. Bro, what's this saying?
Yes, my G. That is flames, you know.
Let me tell you something. You ain't born a Londoner. You made one.
Bon appetit, lads.
Lovely. Big game today, mate.
Of course, mate. Ours for the taking.
Once you're in.
Still in right.
You're in.
Yes, right.
You're one of us. Not your mate.
Alex Milwaukee, why are you ducking my calls? Hurry up, man. You're taking a living.
Hey, listen. Tony's on that, man. True that, fam.
You know what? I could have played for Arsenal. Yeah, top scorer, under nines, Canning Town.
If you stay real and you come correct, we'll make you invincible. We change the rules.
Change the whole game.
When you put on our shirt, you turn and face. You never hide. That's how we create legends that never die.
We play for the badge. We go all the way. Remember, we run North London.
That makes us Arsenal. That's why we play.
What can I say, man? North London's home.
For anybody listening on the radio, all those North London actors you heard were from the likes of Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, Mesut Ozil, Sead Kolasinac and Hector Bellerin, who actually does speak like that. The one thing you have to say is that at least you're not taking themselves too seriously. They realise the joke shop that is Arsenal. Like that is just like Arsenal Fan TV produced well. It's not that promo.
I tell you what, I'm shocked at. The culinary delights of North. It's just all fat and fried and
amazing.
Like, yeah, it does. It's like if you have a hangover and you need to go get it sorted, that's where you got to go.
Go to an Arsenal game, but then the performance will invariably make that hangover worse.
It looks like they actually have had a couple of the old large English breakfasts before some of the appearances.
Oh.
Just appeared down before them. They have a tough one today, mate.
The Tottenham gloating here. The pre-season Tottenham gloating. I'm loving it.
Well, I apologise.
Let's tell you what's coming up on today's OTB AM in terms of the running order. We're going to kick off now with the sports pages in just a moment. Shane O'Donnell is going to join us on the line to talk to us about life in Clare after they exited the championship, a bit on Harvard, but mostly to look ahead to the Munster final this Sunday. We're going to get into the Leinster final then in depth as well with Diarmuid Lyng, who'll join us on the back of that. The Super 8s then, we'll be previewing who might make it through to the Super 8s, who'll be making it through, first of all, to round 4 of the qualifiers, because it's round 3 of the qualifiers this weekend. Anthony will be helping us preview that. And Women's World Cup transfers and Phil's sports news, all with the man, Phil Egan, after 9 o'clock this morning. Before all that, it is time for the sports pages.
Join Off the Ball in Abu Dhabi this November 17th to 23rd for the inaugural Off the Ball Open. With flights from Dublin, 5 nights in a 4-star hotel, golf on 2 championship courses, gala awards dinner, Peter Lorry golf clinic and a live Off the Ball roadshow. You can also hang out with some special guests including Kevin Kilban and Kieran Donaghy. The inaugural Off the Ball Open. Book now at CassidyTravel.ie and check out offtheball.com.
Have you got your seat in the plane, Anthony?
I'm still waiting by the phone, you know.
So am I.
Yeah. Oh, wait?
Yeah.
What do you play off?
I don't.
I will do that again. What do you play off? 12?
12, yeah, sorry.
Yeah, you definitely
a good 12.
Yeah, you should be on it.
Yeah, I should,
There's no doubt about it.
Getting closer and closer by the day to getting on that plane. If there's one single reason for me getting back into golf, it will be that Abu Dhabi trip.
Yeah, actually it looks class, to be honest. Yeah, I don't want to, I'm not going to feel that if I don't get the invitation, I'll feel my nose has been put out of joint. But I'm just going to put it on the record.
Put it on the record.
Potentially, it could be.
AKA everybody out in the office, all the big wigs and Off the Ball. Give Anthony Moyles a call. You can go on to offtheball.com for more details there. Let's get stuck into the back pages this morning, and we'll start with the Irish Times. Jackie Tyrrell's column leading the way, as you can imagine. Transformed Tip showing real hunger for crown. It's interesting stuff, and it's this cliche about Tipperary that, to quote Jackie Tyrrell, when Tip win in All-Ireland, they win it well. They leave nobody in doubt about how talented they are, about how far they are ahead of everybody when they're on their game. But in 2011 and 2017, they fell flat. They hadn't the answers that were needed to win back-to-back. Why was this? They They were beaten in games they shouldn't have been, and they had players not reaching their potential. Why? They had internal issues, disciplinary problems, lads put off the panel, lads dropped for non-hurling reasons. It's like they have a split personality, or maybe a split mentality. When they're in their groove and playing scintillating hurling, it takes a fair team and an animal to stop them. I don't think 15 Chuck Norrises would have stopped them in the 2016 All-Ireland final. And it's all true, really. This has been one of the biggest enigmas in recent sport, the idea that Tipperary can be so irresistible one year and fall flat the next.
Be interesting to see what the turnaround or the turnover rate on the team would be, the actual starting 15 from the last number of years, you know.
Not huge.
No, I mean, all of the main men are still there, and they're still playing in their positions, in their preferred positions. But there's no doubt about it. I think, you know, I would not have known what he's trying to imply there with regard to, you'd hear the odd thing about the panel and a fella being kicked off and next thing he come back on or he's gone, and you'd hear it, but they seem to kind of keep it fairly tight as regards the news emanating out of the camp. But it's hard as well. It is hard to kind of keep that level. You know, it is hard to keep it. And when you haven't had it for a while and you get it, there's always going to be a bit of a lull. But certainly Sheedy seems to have a serious handle on them. You know, just how to treat them and the respect they give him back, which is a big, big thing.
Yeah, for sure. And that is something that's covered in the Irish Examiner, which we'll get to in a moment. You've got a couple of other papers?
Yeah, I've got the Times in England. It's just going over about the Norway-England match last night. England winning 3-0 to go into the World Cup final, where they play. It's either France, I think, isn't it?
France or the United States, which is on tonight. Yeah, great game.
Which is going to be a serious, serious game. So yeah, Phil Neville will be happy after the goings on in the last game, where they were, let's just say, tried to be bullied off the park.
Well, to be fair, maybe some more of those goings on is what Norway should have resorted to, because they let England play around them last night. England completely outclassed them. Norway, I thought, were very, very poor. To be fair, I haven't watched much of Norway in this year's tournament, but they were built up as the team that have managed to rally in the face of adversity when their best player and the world's best player wasn't even in the World Cup. And I thought they were very, very poor last night. Caused a few problems for England, but I thought England were comfortable. In terms of getting to a World Cup semi-final, it's been straightforward for them, from what I can see. But that semi-final is going to be one step up.
Yeah, I watched. Oh, sorry, was it? Yeah, sorry, into the semi-final. I watched the Japan game, England-Japan there not so long ago. I just haven't had a chance to watch much of it because of the time in the evening. And I was impressed by them because Japan were actually really, really good, technically excellent. And had them under serious pressure with about 10, 15, 20 minutes to go in the game, and were really pushing. And then England got a great breakaway goal, you know, and just showed a lot of power. A lot of you know, good, technically good players, but a lot of big girls at the back who are well able to handle themselves and play the ball out. So yeah, it should be good.
Yeah, it's for sure. That's actually the one thing. There was one chance that Norway had last night. It was like a point-blank save from the England keeper. Ball falls to an England defender and they just play the ball out of the back. There's no sort of hoofing or panicking in that situation, which kind of means that Neville's got them playing a brand of football in which they're really, really confident in their own ability. So I think they're going to put up a fight in the semi-final, and it's going to be great. But that game tonight is going to be a cracker, you'd imagine. The Irish Examiner sports section leads with "In Search of Change," and this is the Derek McGrath column that I mentioned. He's talking about the boldness and intuition of Davy. Davy's one of the elements in it. He also talks about Liam Sheedy, as I mentioned in this column. He says that before the 2012 Waterford County final, he got the services of Liam Sheedy into his club dressing room, and he spoke passionately about the flow from nervous tension to excitement and adrenaline, but particularly about the need for an edge, what we in the room interpreted as being the perfect merger of savage discipline and attitude. Nothing silly or stupid, but no backward step or sign of weakness to be conveyed. Like, he talks about his body language being hugely impressive. Often overlooked, though, is his ability to delegate responsibilities. He has huge personalities around him in Tommy Dunn, Dara Egan, Owen Kelly and Eamon O'Shea, but all are united with a common goal in mind: what's best for Tipperary. And the one team, especially in hurling, that this just gives you a striking reminder of is Kilkenny. This intense savagery that great Kilkenny team brought to the table, which obviously Sheedy brought to the table as well in 2010, and this complete lack of ego, especially on the sideline, which is something that Leinster Rugby have certainly looked into over the past couple of years as well. Yeah, and it is important. You know, ego can be
a good and a bad thing, but on the sideline, you have to have a certain amount of it. But I definitely think if you're not able to delegate and you're not able to say, listen, this is your role, I want you to take it and go ahead and do it. I don't need to necessarily check up on you. I want you to just make sure you can clock in with me. Communication is a massive part of all of that, and the backroom teams. And as backroom teams grow, communication is vital, because there's no way as a manager you can make sure that there's 20 odd people who are all doing what they should be doing, and then if you were to go and check and be on top of it, your head would explode. So you need to pick those 3 to 4 things that you can actually try to control, and then just make sure that whoever has that job is able to do it and is doing it well.
Serious levels of trust required.
Well, there is, yeah. The trust level is a big thing, but the leadership, you obviously have to say, well, listen, this is how I want it to be done. This is my vision, and this is, this is something I'm really strong on. And if people aren't picking up on those things and they keep falling down, well, then you have to have serious conversations. But what you're hoping is the people who are around you, who you've handpicked, understand the language that you're using and are saying, okay, this is something I really need to get on top of. So if a player needs a conversation, it shouldn't have to be, we have to have a conversation about the conversation. It should be just like, listen, Eoin, I need you to talk to him. I need to see where his head is at. And straight away, what does that mean? I meet him for a cup of tea or whatever it is, and you try to work it through, and then not necessarily just come back to the manager and say, yeah, I've done that. You come back with some sign of a solution and say, yeah, he's okay, or whatever it is,
You've got the Daily Mail there?
Yeah, Daily Mail. Again, another little bit about magic number. You've got a bit on the game last night, but then you've got crowd set to reach over 100,000 mark for both the Leinster and Munster final. So the GAA will be happy about that after the number of the figures yesterday. And then an article about Mickey Hart about how he's the man to negotiate the qualifiers better than anyone.
Yeah, he sure is. I think we also have the UK Mail here as well this morning, and the story about Aaron Wan-Bissaka, who's pictured in his new Manchester United shirt for the first time as £50 million man will finalise his mega money move today. It's been some journey for him. This time last year he wasn't exactly in a great position. Crystal Palace moved him to a right back. Now he's a Manchester United right back, the second or third most expensive English player of all time now. So big signing for Manchester United. We can see him in his kit there, so that's going to happen today.
Yeah. Wow.
The back page of the Sun leads with this big story: lamps under lights. Frank to take charge of Chelsea for first time in friendly at Dalymount. So this is a massive windfall for a couple of League of Ireland clubs. His first game in charge of Chelsea, Frank Lampard, is going to be at Dalymount Park. They're going to be up against Bows at 7:45 on Wednesday, July the 10th, before Richmond Park at 2 p.m. on Saturday, July the 13th, up against St. Pat's. So it's I'd imagine those tickets are going to be like gold. I think about 30 quid a pop, which is probably fair enough if people around here want to go see Chelsea. And that's a quiz question in years to come, I dare say. That's Frank Lampard's first game is in Dalymount.
130,000 Pats are due to pocket, and 95 for both. That's serious money.
Huge
Massive money.
Especially when you compare that to the prize money that's actually available in the League of Ireland.
Yeah.
The other story here on the back of the Sun is Neil has Luca him. So this is regards to Luca Connell, who's left Bolton Wanderers, and Neil Lennon has confirmed that they're keen on landing him. So he's trained at Mick McCarthy's Ireland senior squad, as we know. He was kind of the latest person we were talking about will he, won't he, don the green shirt last month. And he's set to leave Bolton following their relegation from the Championship. But he was pictured at Celtic Park yesterday, and Lennon has said, we believe he's available on a free transfer. And they're interested and discussions are ongoing. So that's a good move, I think, for Luca Connell. Interesting to see if he'll get some first team action.
Yeah, I've got the Independent here, and there's a article on Lukaku saying that United are actually going to reject a move whereby Inter Milan would come in, they'd actually take him on loan and then buy him. So obviously United shelved out, I think it was around 80 million on Lukaku to Everton, and they're a little bit below that.
Yeah, they want that back.
Yeah, they want it back at a minimum. I don't know. I think I'd just take it, whatever you can get.
It looks pretty close as well, and there is talks about some of the names involved in a potential swap, like Ivan Perisic, who was somebody that Manchester United were linked with previously, and people are like, that'd be a great move if they can make that happen. So something's changed here now where perhaps you don't want Perisic. I don't know, it's...
What's your take on Lukaku?
Okay, I'm very sympathetic towards Romelu Lukaku. I thought he was a great signing for Manchester United at the time. I thought he's got a bit of a tough doing from Manchester United fans and football fans in general.
Due to His weight issues, his laziness,
well,
the fact that he doesn't score goals.
There's a number of reasons there why those people might actually be correct about Romelu Lukaku, right? Like, I thought I was suddenly like a Cheshire cat when Solskjaer started and Lukaku started. Who was it? It was against Arsenal in the FA Cup, and Lukaku was down the right wing playing unbelievably. I was like, look, he is a footballer. Yeah. Like, this idea that a professional footballer doesn't have a first touch just seems so ridiculous to me. Clearly that can't be true. Yeah. But the more time has gone by, the more the months have gone by, and the more the season dwindled away from Manchester United, I was like, I was clearly wrong about Romelu Lukaku. Like, I think if they can take it, what is it, the money they're talking about here, 56?
Yes, it was 62.7. Yeah, to be exact.
Like, some people would say that's
9 million and then 53.7 at the end.
A lot of people will say that is an emergency button, press immediately. You press that button immediately on Manchester United, and as Rio Ferdinand said, you get the forms in front of Inter Milan immediately and you get them to scribble down on that line ASAP. A lot of people will think that. I think he will do good things in his career yet. I just don't think the Manchester United scenario suited him. He didn't help himself, and he openly admitted that his weight was a problem after last year's World Cup. Roberto Martinez had told him to alter his weight a little bit, and he struggled to get it back on side for Manchester United, but ultimately that can't help you control the ball. And I don't know, it just seemed like a real crisis of confidence when the ball was just hopping off his feet. This is a fella who scored loads of goals for Everton. This is a fella who managed to bang the goals on a regular basis in patches for Manchester United. I think it was the level to which he was criticised was harsh. I felt that this guy can't play football. He's useless. I know, it was a bit harsh. I think
might have been the people around him. You know, might have been when certain individuals were in the team that they just didn't play to his strengths.
Yeah, I think there's an element of that, and maybe people will say he's average, and maybe at worst that's what he is. The back page of the Irish Daily Star this morning is "That's my Roy." O'Neill backs Keane to shine on his own. Rue says, "Enjoy United, Aaron." That's Wayne Rooney talking about Manchester United's new big money signing. Kylie then says, "We can work it out." He's called on his men to work like dogs this weekend. And Kieran Donaghy saying, "Pissed off Dubs will use funding flack as fuel." We'll get back to that in just a moment, but you got the Mirror before that.
Yeah, I've got the Mirror. You've got it again, and the article about Paddy McNair. Celtic lodge £5 million sterling bid to lure Northern Ireland star McNair to the Scottish champions. So that's a big one. 24 years of age, I didn't realise that actually. And then Conlon loses chance for Nikitin revenge as injury hits the Russian. So that was the rematch that isn't going to happen. But what they're saying is that they're going to raise him up a level now, and they're saying that basically the next fight is going to be the biggest fight of his career so far.
Well, they have to say that now after that falling through.
Well, he also needs to start probably going up the gears a little bit, you know.
Yeah. The back page of The Guardian is, "It's a typical English thing. People want us to fail at the World Cup," says Bairstow. That's in relation to the cricket. And then the World Cup, Lionesses roar into semi-finals. An impressive England opened the scoring after 3 minutes to sweep past Norway in their World Cup quarter-final.
Yeah, and then I've got the Herald, and it's a blue bonanza. That's that story about Chelsea visiting Pats and Bows. And then you've got Stephen Bradley, the Shamrock Rovers boss, basically saying that regardless of tonight, that the race for the title isn't over yet when they face Dundalk. And you've got a piece of Kieran Whelan talking about Andy McEntee and saying that he needs to focus on the Royals' woes.
He sure does. I think he's kind of in the Andy McEntee camp as well when it comes to the media dealings, that he's got a bit of sympathy for him. The Racing Post front page goes with day 2 of the Derby Festival, Friday Night Delight. It's Coolmore versus Godolphin at the Curragh as Pink Dogwood goes head to head with Wild Illusion. And then on the back, it's Proteas playing for Pride. Sri Lanka 7-4 to follow up. England shock Sri Lanka against South Africa at 10:30 this morning. Just a couple of more stories we want to get to before we wrap up the paper section today, and the Gaelic Life is kind of leading the agenda on this. Let's have a look at a couple of the articles here. Caelan Mooney and Malachy O'Rourke. Malachy O'Rourke here, first of all. Monaghan County Board mustn't panic. This is with regards to finding the solution there in terms of the vacant managerial role. And then Caelan Mooney is set to go to London. A quick mention then as well of Conor Glass. There's an interview with him with Niall McCoy. And the piece we want to get into in a bit of depth now is Kevin Cassidy. He's got a column here saying Dublin begrudgery leaves a sour taste. And we've got the piece here just to go through a couple of the lines that kind of sum up his point of view on the whole Dublin situation. He says, "We have a tendency on this wonderful island of ours of wanting to destroy anyone or anything that is working well or doing well. For some reason we can't just applaud and respect hard work and success. when Kerry dominated the football, or when Kilkenny recently dominated the hurling scene, did we call on Croke Park to split those counties in two or demand their funding be slashed? So you can imagine what the tone of this article is. He's defending the Dubs. He's really railing against the idea that the funding has led to this Dublin level of success. He talks about the current team, and he says they've been there since the beginning with regards to Cluxton, McMahon, McCauley, Brogan, Kilkenny, McCarthy, and they've been the backbone of what they built. None of those players are as a result of direct Croke Park funding. People will then argue that it's Dublin's conveyor belt of talent that sets them apart. The next group to come through are the likes of Mannion, Scully, Howard, etc. These guys, like the rest before, were produced by volunteers in their clubs, just like the rest of us, and money again played no part, and on it goes. I'm not sure what you think about this. It's one side of the argument is that the funding is a direct responsibility for Dublin's success, and the other side is funding has nothing to do with it. The answer may lie somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, and I think it does lie somewhere in the middle, and I think it's a chicken and egg situation whereby there is no denying when you put down the cold hard facts and the numbers, you can see, well, here's the X amount going to Dublin, here's the rest of the money that went to the rest of the country, right? But then people on the Dublin side of the camp will bring in obviously the population and the playing numbers and say, well, actually, if you did it per head and where do the figures come in? But regardless of all of that, I talked about this last Sunday after the game with Joe. There was a decision made that the games in Dublin, as the capital city and as a place where it would have the most market, needed to be upped, and the investment in it had to happen. And at the end of the day, whether people like it or not, the GAA is basically now a corporate entity. It is business. It has, balances. It has to balance up. It has incoming, it has outgoings, and like any corporation, it has to look at where do we get our best bang for the buck. The most times that they will fill, especially in football parlance, is when the Dubs are playing in Croke Park. That's when they're going to make their most money. That's when they're going to get the biggest crowds. What has unfortunately happened for them in the strategy that they took on is the unintended consequences of the fact that it got so big, so strong, that it just wiped everyone else in front. And actually it brought the game down a level as regards an attraction and as regards entertainment value. So yes, you have increased the player power and increased the actual the amount of people who play the game in Dublin.
The presence in the capital, that was the aim.
Correct.
It's been carried out incredibly successfully.
And you tick the box on that one, absolutely. You'd say, well, you see the amount of kids who are playing, it's massive. Rugby and soccer looked like it was going to take on. They've been pushed back to the so much so that soccer has even thought about having to change its season, and stuff like that, underage and all those different things. I'm not saying that's the only reason for it, but if anyone was doing it, it would be the right reason, that you have it all going kind of, running along for the calendar year. But my point is that you end up building this behemoth and then it just starts to consume everyone in front. So very much, who's at fault there? Jim Gavin's not at fault. None of the players are at fault. None of these volunteers are at fault. But you can't either not say that there's loads and loads and loads of volunteers and great people in other counties, and other people are trying to do their best with what they have and trying to improve the game and trying to close the gap and everything else. So there is, I think, it is very much the funding and the money and all of that was a situation where it built it from the ground. Like, I remember being involved with Meath, and I ended up going in to play with St. Oliver Plunkett's, I think it was around from about 2012 on. And I remember saying to some of the fellas off the Meath team who were very, very close to what I was saying, that we were doing fitness tests with St. Oliver Plunkett's, and some of the lads who were on the panel of the St. Oliver Plunkett's panel were in better shape than the fellas who were on the Meath team. And they were, in better conditioning. And they had been doing that conditioning work for a number of years. Like, I saw stuff in there that you would never, you didn't see in a club team in Meath, only for the last few years. So there was always steps ahead. Now, those the resources that go into doing that, gyms, watt bikes, Airdyne bikes, physios on call, nutritionists, that all takes money. Coaches who are being put into each club, so at underage level you're coaching properly rather than, Anthony Moyles down there or someone else's father or someone else's mother down there and just kind of winging it for the morning.
Yeah, but volunteers can learn from professionals. This idea that volunteers don't get paid, it's fair enough, the work they're doing is for free, but that doesn't mean that what they're working with is free, or what they've learned from is free.
Correct.
Like, money makes people working for free better.
Absolutely.
And I just find this volunteer argument really patronising to the weaker counties who have the same appetite for success, but just don't have whatever it is, the training or the education or whatever
access.
it is.
The access.
Like, I think, as I say, I think in my view the answer is somewhere in the middle here, that this funding has allowed Dublin to capitalise on what they've got. Other counties aren't being given the same opportunity to capitalise on that talent. They're losing their talent, it's going abroad. It may even be within Ireland in terms of rural depopulation. If Dublin have a young player, chances are they've got a much higher chance of making sure that player becomes a senior inter-county star, a bigger chance than any other county.
Well, here's a question for you with regard to resources and stuff. You never ever hear of a talented Dublin player being discussed in Aussie rules.
Well, one famously did his U-turn.
One. Yeah. But you know, like really...
James Madden last year, says Tommy. But
okay, the Ballyboden
it's a short
guy,
list.
It is. Like, I mean, it's not the Ballyboden, I think it's the Ballyboden player. Like, I mean, he did the tests and he blew absolutely everyone out of the water, right. This individual. But you can imagine that Aussie rules was definitely looking at Fenton over the last number of years and see the player that he has turned into. But look at the amount of players that Clare have lost. You know, Meath have lost a number of players over the last number of years. Like, Kerry did their damnedest to hold Clifford.
Still lost a couple.
Yeah, and like I'd say, you know, probably had to meet Clifford in very much in the sense of, we'll put you through college, we'll do this, you know. So there was a lot of resources that went into that. But even below that level, I'm talking about 17, 18-year-olds coming through who they're picking out and going, right, these are the guys who when they hit 19 we could, like, so there's now, that also comes with the choice of, well, listen, you have the chance of being in a team that are potentially going to win All-Irelands and all the attention that comes with that. Your profile will be big. And then you weigh it up against, well, how much money am I going to actually make in Australia? Is it, you know, I'm all the way over that side of the world. Okay, so there are other factors. But the point of the matter is that Dublin have used the money very, very well. And regardless of that money now, if I was a sponsor, and I mentioned this last Sunday as well, who do you want to be with? Well, you want to be with the team that's going to have the most exposure. So they have an ability now to do pre-match receptions, to do post-match receptions, to do, you know, charity fundraisers or fundraising events during the week outside of, like, I mean, massive things where big companies will get behind it. They'll sell tables to big companies. Companies want to be associated with the Dublin team. There is this aura around the Dublin team that, you know, there's a calmness, there's a leadership, which there is. But, you know, all of those things are very, very well when you're winning games and you're winning All-Irelands. And again, it goes back to, well, what's first and what's second, the chicken and egg. And people will hold themselves up and say, well, you know, this is the way we behave, which is fantastic. But companies, as I say, will want to be associated with that. So there's already an ability to generate revenue.
Yeah.
A massive amount of revenue that other teams don't have and other counties don't have.
Take a county like Meath, for example. How much young talent have they lost?
Well, the one that jumps straight to my mind is Conor Nash. You know, like, this is a guy who he's 6'4". Jesus, he could be 6'5". He's well able to motor. Like, I mean, he's fast. He's well equipped for the modern game. Like, you know, if I was thinking about, you know, you have him, like, you just put him straight in on Fenton last week, and I don't think you'd necessarily have any worries about him. Like, he's that type of a player. He solves a big problem for Meath. And he's that type of a guy who solves a big issue for lots of things. Like, midfield has become a major issue in the modern game because of the fact that you can catch the ball and mark the ball now.
And let's not forget that the players that are being lost to Aussie rules are usually the cream of the crop. It's not like, one or two players could make a difference. Chances are they'd be the leader in that team.
Absolutely, leader in the team. You know, like, I mean, and you think about Kildare, you think about Laois. There's plenty of teams that have lost them. Cork. You know, Cork have been decimated over the last number of years from losing some of their brightest and best talent. So, and again up north. So it's, you know, I definitely think you're right. If we went back on 10 years ago, I just think that there was a lot of work done in the 90s and the early 2000s that wasn't necessarily seen, right? And it wasn't seen by the rest of the country. Okay, and there was money and there was things that the building blocks were being laid. And really the fruition of that is now really the last number of years. It took that amount of time, and it does take that amount of time. Like, I see what's being done in Meath, and I see what's being done in other counties like Kildare, you know, around, and the population and all that helps, but it takes time.
Of course it does.
It takes time to come true.
Yeah, it really does. It's something, no doubt, that we'll come back to as the summer rages on. Kieran Donaghy really saying that it's just going to fuel the fury in the Dublin dressing room this year, and that we're perhaps a little bit too hard on the
I don't know.
I'll
just say last thing. Like, I mean, Cassidy says, hopefully this time next year, he was talking about one of the guys on the Donegal team, he'll be back to the green and gold of Donegal, because unlike a lot of others, we were just putting the head down and trying to bridge the gap. Like, I think that is, like, Meath aren't jumping up and down and saying, like Andy McEntee said, Dublin are a great team, we just have to try to bridge the gap, and everyone in Meath has to try to do what it takes. And Keane O'Neill said the same thing. Everyone realises that they have to try to bridge the gap. I don't think you're finding too many managers who are jumping up and down. I think it's people outside like ourselves who are trying to bring the fact up about the funding,
It's 8:10 on this Friday morning. You're watching or listening to the only sports breakfast show in Ireland and Off the Ball. You can catch us on offtheball.com if you want an audio-only version of this. And we've got plenty of good stuff coming up over the next hour. Shane O'Donnell will be with us next.
The Sport Ireland campus Blanchardstown is the home of Irish sport, not just for our athletes but for you in the community. Check out our amazing offers for families with kids camps, sport academies and birthday parties. Or for adults, why not join our gym with a 50-metre pool? Or your club, school, friends can book one of our world-class indoor or outdoor facilities, including our brand new field sport covered pitches. Find out more on nationalsportscampus.ie.
You're very welcome back, Shane O'Donnell. Good morning to you.
Good morning. Thanks very much for having me on.
Not at all. How are things?
Great. Yeah, things are good. Good. Early morning, but not so bad.
There's plenty to talk about. We want to get stuck into the Munster final. Limerick against Tip this weekend. You've obviously come up against both sides this year. Disappointing results from a Clare perspective, obviously. But did you see anything firsthand that suggests that these are the two teams that have pulled away from the rest of the country? Because that seems to be the discourse, that we're not only watching a Munster final this Sunday, but potentially a preview of the All-Ireland final.
Yeah, well, that seems to be what everyone is talking about, right? And obviously they're two very good teams, but I definitely wouldn't go as far as saying that that they're going to walk through a Leinster team when it comes down to it. But it's definitely an interesting proposition, right, in the weekend. Like, they're two very different teams when you're playing against them, and as you said, obviously it didn't quite work out for us. So maybe some of your listeners will be like, "Why is he telling us about it?" But Limerick are a very kind of tactically rigid they set up as a very solid structure, and it's all about kind of unlocking that structure. And like, we would have beaten them last year because we kind of got to grips with that structure, and then would have been walked over this year for the same reason, because we didn't. So I think it's a lot. Playing against Limerick is a very tactical kind of game coming up against Tip. And Tip then are just, everyone is talking about them for a reason. They're playing extremely well and their players are all on form. But this will definitely be their biggest challenge, I'd imagine.
That's very interesting, especially on Limerick there, the tactical rigidity that they bring to the game. Is there a sort of situation that if you get your tactics just a little bit wrong against Limerick, it kind of opens the floodgates?
Yeah, small bit, yeah. You find yourself just batting the ball against the wall sometimes. They've set up so solid towards the back that it's just kind of, unless you have a plan coming in that is working on the day, it's very difficult to manoeuvre in the game, because the natural movements that forwards and stuff would make, they're locking them down, because that's obviously their game plan. So the kind of flow of trying to work yourself back into the game, I think, is more difficult against Limerick. So it can be very tactical, but at the same time, if you can get on top of it, you can get a lot of fruit from the work you're putting in.
Are they man marking, Shane, or are they kind of zonal marking in the defence, or is it just that they've lots of bodies back, or how, what way are they trying to play it?
Yeah, well, we felt that they were zonal in the half back line. Their two midfielders are coming back right on top of their half forward or their half back line, and their half forwards are pulling well into midfield. But that the biggest thing is that their half backs are almost just standing on half back regardless of what their man is doing. And then the midfielders kind of picking up the slack. Just makes it very difficult for the runs you're trying to make as an inside forward, or even the man in the hole or anything. Like, that wing back spot is usually your go-to area to find some space and to make a run, or to even just open up by moving into an area to get your man out of the way. Because if you're running out of wing back, your man is just going to stand in his position, because you're of no threat to anyone. So it just kind of makes it very difficult to kind of manoeuvre space in all positions, because those main areas of space are kind of locked down.
Right, so the ball into you basically as a corner forward needs to be absolutely on the money if you're going to have success against that Limerick defence.
Yeah, basically. And you have a lot less space. Kind of, you're trying to manoeuvre just in the full forward line then, which is obviously is quite difficult, because that's what the full-backs are hoping that it comes down to, that kind of thing, that you can't kind of create a greater chaos in the forwards, that everyone is kind of moving and opening up space. that you're kind of left to your own, to fight your own battle basically, but to win that ball that is not the ball you really want, where like a ball has to be played, the man is right behind you, and so it's just going to come down to a great touch or you lose the ball.
Like, one of the ways of counteracting that, I'd imagine, correct me if I'm wrong here, is potentially running at that half-back line, just taking the ball and just trying to burst through them instead of playing the ball over that. Now, Tipperary this weekend are missing Bonner Mara, so after what you said there, the idea of his loss, the magnitude of that is even greater.
Yeah, absolutely, and he's one of the best in the country for just taking on those balls in a bit of brute force and just making his way through a half-foot back line. But it's difficult because to get that run going, the midfielders tend to be coming back onto that, so even if you break a half-back line, the midfielders are tracking so deep then that they'd almost pick you up. But Bonner is certainly a huge loss, obviously. But on top of them playing Limerick now, it's even more significant, as you said.
So what do you suggest Tipperary do? What is the way around this? I know they will have learned a lot from day one, and they obviously got the win against them on day one, but this is going to be a vastly different team, 3 or 4 changes you'd expect.
Yeah, I don't think that you can't really anything into the prior game. I think, to be honest, they nearly have to play Limerick at their own game. I think pull their half-forward line into midfield, just make the midfield an absolute battle zone, and then just let Limerick's half-back line, if they want to sit, they can sit, but their men are in midfield collecting ball and shooting, and Tipper, fantastic team at long-range scores. So I think that's how they should kind of address this sitting half-back line. Just put the pressure on the back, being like, okay, well, the full back line isn't getting that much ball, but your man has scored 3 points in midfield. So then they start to feel the personal pressure that, okay, my man is doing damage here. So then they get to make that decision. So I think put the pressure back onto Limerick backs to make the decision, to be honest.
Right, okay. So basically, you need to get the ball down the throat of Tipperary. They'll back themselves in midfield. You've seen that they're possibly more physical than any other team in the country in that department, and that could be where you get at Limerick. Like, to what extent can that work? And to what extent has it been tried before, actually, Shane? Because it seems like a tactic that could actually hurt Limerick.
Yeah, it gets tried quite often, I think. But sometimes you need your backs to be playing quite well, and you need them to be playing confidently, because you can't just launch any ball that you're under pressure. You need them to be breaking their man and to get their heads up and playing ball to midfield, 30, 40 accurate yard stick passes. Because if you launch ball, it'll land straight on their half-back line. So you need your backs to be kind of not on top, but definitely confident and playing with confidence and being willing to get their heads up and look for men. Because obviously the half-back line is a no-go if you're going to be playing that kind of game. But yeah, just like a hand pass or two, getting out of the backs, you need that kind of stuff going, and then 30-yard stick pass to a man free. And with that kind of setup, there should be a man free in midfield. So then that's kind of the approach you try to take.
Just a final point on this game, the role of Aaron Gillan. It's been said so many times over the past couple of weeks that he's unbelievably special as an inside forward. It could have been even asked, are Limerick a little bit too reliant on him? What's your take on Aaron Gillan? What is it exactly about him that makes him so special?
I think his percentage rate of how much ball he retains that goes in, even difficult ball in the air, it doesn't really seem to matter. He seems to have extremely high percentage of just getting ball to hand, and they do set up very well, and they tend to give him the space to operate, but still every ball that goes in fairness to him, he managed to get his hand on, and it's just extremely dangerous that he can catch those balls that are kind of awkward that a back might commit to, and then suddenly he's around the back and he's in on goal. So those kind of opportunities seem to present themselves to him more than any other, really, in the Limerick full forward line or forwards, because he just is able to claim those balls that are almost 50-50 balls that the back feels confident to go for, but if he wins them, then they're exposed. So I think he's extremely dangerous in that department, in those kind of 50-50 balls.
It's kind of like an ability to win his own ball, and obviously what he can do on the ball himself is unreal as well. Is there an instinctive nature to that? Is there something that he does that you can learn, that you can train on?
I think it's easy to say it's just instinctual, but obviously there's a huge amount of training, and I think being a free taker, he obviously puts a huge amount of time into that. I think that gives you a certain element of confidence in basic skills like striking and that kind of thing, and even just confidence on the ball. And it kind of gets you into the game. That kind of stuff in a full forward line makes a big difference. I know people mention it quite a lot, but feeling like you're in the game helps a lot. You can go along swaths of this game in the full forward line with 5 or 10 minutes in a row where you don't actually get a ball, or a ball doesn't come near you, never mind get a ball. So I feel like it's a good having your full forward line, a member of your full forward line taking frees. But he's obviously has all the basic skills down to a T. But I think the 50-50 balls, that how is a percentage of return from them is what kind of makes him stand out in the Limerick team.
Yeah, it certainly seems that way. Like, another forward you wanted to get your take on is TJ Reid ahead of the Leinster final this weekend, and the reliance on one forward, and the interesting narrative that we now have going into this game is the job that Matthew O'Hanlon did on him in the last game they played, nullifying him from play. How does TJ Reid react to that? How does he adapt this Sunday?
Yeah, it's certainly difficult, and when you've, like, basically Wexford's entire plan was built around stopping TJ, and it's difficult to manoeuvre out of that as one player, but he's probably the best hurler in the country, and it's an exceptional player, so I wouldn't be surprised, and Kilkenny will know that, especially that they've got pre-warning coming into this game that this is exactly what's going to happen, and especially who's going to be marking. So I think I'm sure there's weaknesses to what did happen, but I think he just needs to maybe go back to pitch a small bit more, try to pick up ball and just get into the game a small bit. Feel like if you're around the half-forward line and you're being man-marked, it's extremely difficult to find space because the person, it's not a usual position to have someone right up on top of you, and usually you just kind of come onto ball, get hand pass, get stick pass, and those balls won't be played to you if there's someone on you. Like, if to the full forward line, there's always being expected to see a person on you, but I think he maybe just needs to come back to pitch a small bit deeper, try to collect breaking ball off half back line, or even deeper again, just collecting primary possession from the backs and then try and build from them. He mightn't have I'm sure Kilkenny would love to always have him in centre forward with the ball in hand, but he might need to get himself into the game by just coming back to pitch a small bit.
It's interesting as well in the context of the big games you've played, and Derek McGrath, the Irish Examiner, this morning, he reckons Davy is going to go with the same game plan this weekend as he did with you guys in the 2013 replay. He said many observers described Clare on that day taking off the shackles. The reality was a detailed plan manifesting itself in Croke Park on the biggest day of all. He said Tony Kelly would be man-marked, so Davy played him at 11 and let him wander from D to D. Podge Collins and Conor McGrath then in the corners and 45 yards or further from the goal. The fact that they were tied by man-markers duly opened the field for Dara Conan and yourself, Shane, in the replay to wreak havoc on the edge of the square. Can you see Wexford going with something similar this weekend?
Yeah, I can. It can be. It's a great tactic if it works, obviously. I like all tactics, I guess, but it can be shut down efficiently enough, I think, if the other team commit to spending an extra man or something like that. A man in front of a one-man full forward line will crucify that. Like, it's a 2v1 on every ball. Any time a person breaks, the half back them starts going for goal, there's an extra man there, and it kind of negates the real threat. You'll get scores, you'll get points from balls being passed back out, and obviously you'll have an extra man to be able to build play. But I think if Kilkenny committed a sweeper to that, I know sweeper is a dirty word almost, but if they committed a sweeper to 1v1 inside, I think that would almost negate that threat. But if they don't, it's an extremely a game can turn, like, you can get goals and goals from especially from runners running through. If anyone breaks, then it's open season in front, and the corner forwards tend to make hay as well out the pitch because their backs are used to the very tight kind of rigid full back line, and they're ended up out the pitch picking up ball and being able to play it into that one man. But if Kilkenny committed a man to get an extra man back there, I think it would really negate that threat.
Yeah, do you see a Davy Fitzgerald stamp that was similar to your Clare team on this Wexford team?
Yeah. It's very similar, and obviously the personnel is differently, and the way he's planning to exploit with those personnel is going to be a bit different. But the broad tactic, is definitely the same idea. To try and open up as much space as possible and just don't get runners especially, but even just get that 1v1 inside is definitely what he's trying to look for.
What way are you calling these games this weekend, Shane?
Yeah, I was thinking about that this morning. I'm not really sure. Like, the Munster final, Tip are obviously favourites, and for good reason. But I just feel like if Tip can't get tactically on top, and especially as you mentioned with Bonner being gone, if they can't tactically get on top, I think it could really come down to it. And I'd nearly give Limerick the tip for it. For the Leinster final, I think you have to go with Kilkenny. Obviously, nullifying TJ was a massive part of that game, but to do that 2 days in a row is extremely difficult. As difficult as do one, but to do it twice in a row, especially when he knows what's coming. So Kilkenny will have a bit of warning for that to obviously set up for that eventuality. So I would say Kilkenny, to be honest, in the other game.
Right, there should be two absolute crackers. Before you let you go, Shane, obviously it's been a couple of weeks since the exit now. I'm not sure at what point you start to post-mortem in terms of what happened for Clare this year. Have you got an idea in your mind in terms of what were the biggest reasons for the couple of no-shows this summer?
To be honest, we haven't had any post-mortem of any sorts except after the games themselves. On a broader, I'm not really sure. No, I haven't really sat down. I've kind of thrown myself back into work trying to distract myself from it. So I've been happy not to think about it. It's obviously been very disappointing. The 2 games where we thought we were set up well for, and they just didn't manifest in performances on the day. As for broader reasons, I can't really pick out anything, and I don't think I don't think there is any major reasons that we didn't perform, but I think it's up to us to figure that out when it comes down to it.
You were speaking a couple of months ago, I think it was with Marie Crowe in the Sunday Independent, about how the post-2013 win was almost tough in a way. You were kind of the most famous man in Ireland for a couple of weeks there. Is the opposite side of that now manifesting itself? Is it a tough county to be in when things go wrong in Clare?
I think all counties are tough to be in when things aren't going how you'd plan them. It's not too bad, to be honest, and I'm sheltered from it some respects. I'm down in Cork in the lab with not that many people who care about hurling. So after big games, wins or loses, I completely get to step away from all that. Some of the lads who teach in Clare and that kind of stuff have said it's been tough, and they've got comments every now and again, but they said it hasn't been too bad. So it's always going to be tough when you're losing these games, but I don't think it's especially bad in Clare or any other.
It seems that that's something you like to do anyway, regardless of the outcome, kind of take yourself away from an environment where hurling is a religion, where you can take yourself away and just be Shane O'Donnell for a while, not just Shane O'Donnell the hurler.
Yeah, well, it's definitely fantastic being able to, especially whatever about wins, but losses, especially where you get to just come back into work in the lab the next day and just not talk to anyone about it. And I think it's not just myself. I think anyone would enjoy that. I just in a privileged position to be able to enjoy that. I think any player would tell you that that's exactly what they want. They want to be just doing work to be able to distract them, or just have a long day's work where they don't have to talk about hurling or don't get exposed to people who want to talk to them about it. So I'm in the privileged position that I can enjoy that or deal with that the next day. But some people aren't so lucky.
Is your plan to go back to Boston later on this year, Shane?
No, I won't be going back to Boston unless I can't go back anywhere until I finish my PhD, because I have to do that all here, and there's about 1.5 years left or so in that. After that is finished, I do have the option to go back if I want to. The lab over there has offered, so that's a fantastic option to have, but I don't ultimately know what decision I'll make when I finish my PhD, and it's long enough away for me not to have to make that decision yet. But it's a nice option to have, obviously.
For sure. I just wasn't sure when the reports were there. Obviously, they just allowed you to continue your studies back here at home instead of seeing out the summer over there, basically, is how it worked with Harvard. Yeah. For the Fulbright, you can choose basically how long you want to, between 4 to 12 months, and just the way it was starting at the start of September, 6 months was just a nice period, 6-7 months was a nice period for me to get exactly what I needed to get done over there and to be able to come back and get into the fray over here. And if it came down to it and I couldn't come back hurling and had to do what I had to do over there, that would have been okay as well. But the fact that I could do both, I just thought it'd be a waste not to avail of that opportunity. You said that being over there and being away from home for a small bit and being in an environment where not a lot of people care about sports or hurling in a PhD lab or whatever it may have been, that it almost enhanced your love for the game. Yeah, I mentioned that to Marie that time. It was interesting. I wasn't really sure. I try to avoid hurling and stuff when I'm in the middle of it, because I'm spending so much time training and travelling for training and all the work that's associated with all of that, that I wouldn't watch games or I wouldn't get involved in all the periphery stuff just because I feel like I'm spending enough time at it. And I thought when I was going abroad that I wasn't sure how I'd react. I wasn't sure if I'd completely disconnect from it and enjoy my 6-7 months out there and just not even think about hurling. But I was pleased to realise that come January, February when games started to come back around, the league games, I was that person getting up extra early and on Twitter and seeing everything going on and then watching the game and going crazy in the kitchen and all that kind of stuff. So it's actually nice to know that I did have that love for the game, even when I was kind of disconnected from it. I presume you did bring it up at some points during your PhD. How does a scientist in Harvard react when they hear about hurling for the first time? It was strange. I tried to avoid it. There was 2 Irish guys that I was very good friends with out there, and they knew that I was hurler, and I just basically said to them that they weren't allowed to tell our other friends. Most of our other friends were French and Americans, so they had no exposure to hurling, obviously. And it was probably
maybe January, February, maybe the end of January, where I was just like, all right, this is getting a bit ridiculous. The lads just wanted to tell their friends, like, about this sport, because they love hurling, like, they just wanted to talk about it. Then I was like, fine. And then it was only a couple of weeks of them being like, I showed them my Facebook, like, and the lads were showing them videos, and they were just like, I just felt like a bit of an idiot, to be honest, that I didn't show it. They were like, why didn't you, like, I was really good friends with these guys, and they're like, why were you actively going out of your way to hide this from us? And I was just like, I don't know, I felt stupid about it after. I didn't feel like it was necessary, but at the same time, I definitely enjoyed my 3 or 4 months of, like, complete anonymity and all that, but I did feel like a bit of an idiot after it. They reacted extremely positively. They were, like, telling me about how, like, they were going to be coming back for games and all that kind of thing, but it was interesting. It was an interesting experience, but it was actually nice to get away from it completely as well. I don't really regret so much what I said or what I did.
It's mad, when we talk about sport and we talk about high-level sport, it's such a thing that there's a cross-pollination of different sports, different coaches going into different backroom teams. Like, I wonder, as a sports person, how much you learned from being around, I presume, brilliant minds in Harvard. Did you grow as a person in something that you can apply to your game eventually?
Yeah, absolutely. From a raw talent, hurling point of view, maybe not, but from confidence, leadership, all those kind of more higher-level things when it comes to just playing sport in general. Absolutely being around those kind of people just gives you even just the confidence that you're in that same group as them and you're doing the same kind of things as them. I came back a different person, and several people have said it to me since, in a good way, that I'm far more confident, far more willing to put myself out there, and not even just in an academic point of view, but on the pitch and leadership kind of roles that will be going in training. I'm more willing to put myself into those positions, and I didn't notice it until a couple of people said it, and then I kind of reevaluated what I'd been doing the last few weeks, and I was like, yeah, definitely from just meeting those people and walking, doing the same things as them, being in the same labs as them, and listening to what they're saying and telling them what I'm doing, it just definitely instills a huge amount of confidence, and it's one of a lifetime experience that I'll never forget, obviously, but it definitely improved my leadership and just confidence in general, which is obviously a huge part of hurling and any sport.
That's class, and I think that's a lesson for anybody who's considering taking a bit of time, even just for a few months away or abroad from the game. You're enjoying your summer. I understand you're playing at Lyng before the Irish Open next week.
Yes, yeah, I'm playing next Wednesday in the Irish Open Pro-Am, so I'm suitably nervous about that, but I'm looking forward to it.
Well, best of luck there, Shane. Appreciate your time this morning. Thanks a million for taking the call.
Not at all. Thanks very much for having me. All the best.
Thanks a million. Diarmuid Lyng is with us as well on the line. Diarmuid, how are things?
Yeah, very good. As long as I don't get the same interrogation about what I'm doing in my life as Shane got there, I'll be fine, Owen.
It's
how are you, Anthony?
Good, Diarmuid, yourself?
Yeah, very good, very good.
It is a kind of a rubber stamping over the idea of taking a bit of time away from the game. Like, I mean, the clear head that you must come back with when you apply yourself to hurling once again. And clearly, if you can get yourself into such a position, maybe not everybody will get the opportunity to go to Harvard, but something is similarly successful. The cross-pollination and what you can learn from other brilliant minds will certainly help you as a person.
Yeah, it's interesting just listening to Shane as well, like, because I've been thinking about this for a while, that the idea of, do you know, when you ask players from the outside now, there's a lot of critique about how much is demanded of players and how much pressure is on them and everything else. But when you ask inter-county players the country over, they say they're delighted to be doing what they're doing. And I wonder often how much is that just when you're in the bubble. Of course you're delighted to be doing what you're doing because you don't know anything else. And I think that's one of the things, and listening to Shane, and I know Tony Griffin wrote about the same thing, and I experienced the same thing myself. It's like when you just get outside the bubble a little bit, you see what it is, and it allows you to relax an awful lot more. And I remember coming back my first year, coming back in 2012, the joy of the game had really come back, and it hadn't been there for a long time. And it just sounds like it's the same there for Shane, which is great, you know.
It's an amazing thing, Diarmuid. I spent a lot of my time, obviously, working in Dublin. So, after a game, you can even hear what he was saying there. You don't have that same kind of feeling of people questioning you. You don't go walk down the town and meet people and they're constantly asking you about, the game that happened, be it for the good or for the bad. So it is, just on your point, it's great to have that pressure taken off you at times, and you can dip into it and you can dip out of it. And actually, when you remove yourself sometimes from the pressure and the bubble and the intensity of living, sleeping, dreaming about football or hurling, and it consuming you, it can actually restrict your game an awful lot. Like it really can. It can make you tighten up big time because you're analysing and you're second guessing everything that's happening. Am I training well? Are they, is the manager looking at me well? Why is he picking me here? And actually, sometimes when you do take a break or remove yourself from it, you can actually go back and just play the game for the game.
I think one of the things that happens definitely is you meet people, like I think back about being in Wexford, and Wexford's a relatively small place, and hurling mad, obviously, no different to Meath, and I think that you meet a lot of people's reflection of you. They don't actually often meet the person, they meet the reflection. They listen to, like, watching the game Sunday, what's going to happen is this, is that, and they're meeting what they would interpret you to be, as opposed to actually, how you doing, what's going on with you. And I think then when you start to see yourself as just a response to that question, and just in hurling terms, then you would draw on all of your experience in life on the hurling field, and the wider I think that those experiences are, the more you have to draw on, the more of an open mind you have to draw on in moments that are challenging. So I think it makes perfect sense for Shane to be experiencing that. Funny for him to be avoiding telling people about it, and then for that little bit of shame afterwards. I mean, that's even building that up. Like, it's like, how lightly can we wear the fact that we play inter-county hurling, or that we have this game that we have? How lightly do we wear it? Obviously, we wear it a little bit heavier than we should.
Yeah, it's very true. I think it comes back to this idea when you often ask inter-county players, what do you define yourself as? Are you a hurler, are you a footballer, or are you an actual human being who actually has other interests and does other things in their lives? We should talk about the Leinster final, Diarmuid, because
we should.
It's an important one. It's a big one. So if Kilkenny lose, this is going to be the first time that Brian Cody will go 3 years in a row without winning Leinster. But at the same time, if Davy Fitz gets the job done on Sunday, he'll have completed the full house of medals. There's a lot on the line. The full house of important medals. Probably he hasn't got an Ulster hurling title, I don't think.
Yeah, it's nice that you're starting the question off with if Brian Cody loses or if Kenny lose. It's generally not the way. And I mean, for Davy on that side of it, I mean, that's more of a personal thing, so we're not so interested in that at the moment. It'll be hats off to Davy. I think an extension, definitely, if this is in the third year and we come to a Leinster final, and it's a real, it was the same with the last game against Kilkenny. In fairness, it was like, well, where are Wexford at in terms of their development, and how long can they sustain the type of management style that Davy has? And this is all from the outside looking in, people saying that you get a year and a half, you get 2 years with Davy, and then you don't get any more. But obviously Davy's improving all the time as a manager as well, and he's learning his own lessons along the way. So it seems like Wexford are going I mean, I'm tempering it a little bit with where Kilkenny are at the same time, but they've reached the Leinster final, so there's obviously plenty there in terms of what they bring. And I've said this, I've probably said it every night that I worked off the ball for the full year. It's like, what Kilkenny are going to bring. They always bring a certain amount, and if you bring what that is, that spirit that they bring to every single moment of every single game, it's really hard to break it down. So Wexford, their system causes Kilkenny problems because Wexford they've mastered it so well. But I think on top of that, if Wexford don't bring that honesty that Kilkenny will almost certainly bring, and always do, I think it won't really matter too much about systems or where Davy's trophy cabinet is like, because you have to really meet that above anything else. And I felt the last day in Wexford Park, allied by the fact that it was in Wexford Park, we really did meet that and really did stand up. So yeah, it's going to be different. It's going to be different in Croke Park, definitely. This is more Kilkenny's home than anything else.
Diarmuid, on the Wexford system, just can you elaborate a bit more on that? Like, why do Kilkenny find it so difficult to break it down? And then taking into fact of the TJ Reid factor from the last game, and what Kilkenny might do around obviously trying to counteract that. Will they use him as a foil a bit more, bring him out the field, kind of try to drag people left and right, and actually look to bring other fellas into it? What do you expect?
Yeah, well, I would expect. I would expect TJ not to be held scoreless the next day for sure, and to bring him out more. I'd say to give him a little bit more of a free role further out the field, where Matt Hanlon, obviously beside Kevin Foley, has the freedom as a centre back. When you're in the centre back, you want to be sitting back a little bit at least, but you don't have to do that if you've got somebody sitting in behind you. So to break that down, the reason I think that they struggle with it is because Wexford train with this system all the time. When the pressure comes on in games, one of the significant things that happens is you tend to clear loosely, clear under pressure, and Wexford have developed their far and away from where they were 3 years ago when Liam Ryan, Damien Rex, Simon Donoghue, Sean Murphy come out with the ball. They know that Kevin Foley is there, sometimes a little bit too loose, but they're very, very comfortable in that. Kilkenny on the other side, I think, well, obviously you've got one forward down, so you've got an extra player, and playing against a confident team in possession, that's always going to cause problems. So I think that Kilkenny, with I know they've changed their tactics hugely or changed how to play hugely, but they still do trade on the traditional merits of the game, and there will be a time of there's plenty of times where they're like, look, I need to get the ball up to Colin Fennelly as quickly as I can. I don't need to work it up through the lines all the time. And I think sometimes that fed, particularly in the last game a couple of weeks ago, that fed into Wexford's hands, and they were able to work the ball back out in possession. Not the more attractive game, but definitely very effective when you're able to use it, when you're confident enough to use it, and that's what Wexford have at the moment.
Yeah, when you say at the start there that we know what Kilkenny are going to bring, there was a couple of good stats from Eamon Donoghue in the Irish Times yesterday. He says that the current Kilkenny squad still contains 10 players with All-Star awards and 5 who've won multiple awards, but not once since the new format began in Leinster have all 10 All-Stars started a championship match for Kilkenny, and only once in those 11 matches have all 10 been on the pitch at the same time. So is there still a little bit of a reliance in terms of reaching the peak, in terms of being All-Ireland contenders on the tried and the trusted and the All-Star winners that are getting towards the age of 30 and beyond now at this point, Diarmuid?
I think they're the standard. I wouldn't see there being any issue with that for Kilkenny, even if that is the case. I mean, who are you looking at? Joey Holden and Paul Murphy. Hughie Lawler's come in and he gets to learn from between the two of those fellas. Padraig Walsh again, like outstanding last day and leader in every sense of the word. Killian Buckley's going to be a couple more weeks down the road, and he's probably going to get 70 minutes, and that's going to add a huge amount with Conor Fogarty in midfield. Adrian Mullen won 3 the last day, so he's obviously learning his trade and has done under the guise of Henry Shefflin, TJ, Walter Walsh. I mean, Colin Fennelly, to get all those guys on the field, you would at the one time. I mean, it seems to be that's what we'll be looking at on Sunday. But I still don't feel, even having said that, I still don't feel that they were all-stars at a time when there was other huge all-stars as well. Like they were dominating, and you're always going to win a certain amount of all-stars when you're dominating, but there still is, they had 2 or 3 always who were like head and shoulders above the rest, who brought everybody else on. And I think even though TJ has that, Richie Hogan obviously isn't featuring so much. Overall, it's just not as strong. Kilkenny is just not as strong overall. So I don't know. Individually, all of those players were all very much worthy of their All-Stars, worthy of their All-Irelands, everything else. But as a cohesive unit, there's a couple of players there who I just don't think supplement probably TJ enough. Literally, really only TJ at this stage that I feel. Padraig Walsh is playing fully and utterly to form and is dominating games, but it's really only TJ who's standing out head and shoulders in a way that probably 4 or 5 Kilkenny fellas were 5 years ago.
You mentioned Richie Hogan there on the Hurling show yesterday, which is live every Thursday afternoon on offtheball.com. They discussed Richie Hogan's situation.
What does it say to Richie Hogan now? Because he 5 years ago was Hurler of the Year, or was it even 4 years ago? 2014 or 15? Yeah. He was key man. Everything revolved around him, whether he played full forward, centre forward, wherever. The game plan seemed to revolve about get the ball to Richie Hogan and he's going to do damage. He was an unused sub the last day as well.
Like there was Richie, the day against Limerick last year, I honestly think it was like the 5th or 6th game he had played. It was played 5 or 6 games or come on and hadn't scored. Yeah. Like, and even the day against Galway, he had a goal then against Galway. Yeah, he got 1-3 or 1-4, I think. he has had a lot of shots in games, and even against Galway he had shots, and I don't know, it just doesn't seem to be flowing for him. Cody obviously doesn't think he's shown the form to be in there. If he's on form, he plays, he contributes at some stage, but if he's kind of hit and miss, and it seems to be, it's very deflating when he hits those couple of wides in games, which he has done, take the Limerick game out too, you know, so I think Cody's, if he's playing and he's showing the form in training, he's going to play him, but if he's not going to put him in there.
He mustn't be right.
He mustn't be, no, he's had ongoing back issues for 3 or 4 years now.
Yeah, it's pretty much a fairly clear-cut thing, isn't it, Diarmuid, that if he's in form, you play him. If he's not, you don't. It's not like that he's looking at the medals of Brian Cody and saying, well, this guy could come up with the big stuff. I mean, you have to be in form to be able to show that.
Yeah, there's 3 different dynamics that I wonder about with this. There's the 2 that you've just referenced. The fact that with the medals, I don't think that comes into it for Brian Cody. It's generally, if he's playing, and that's it. I do have, and I'm a little bit slow to say it, but I do have a sneaking suspicion when you think back to Charlie Carter, when you think back to DJ Carey, when you think back to some of the bigger players early on, and there's a few kind of fringe players who came along as well, who I don't think towed the line in a way that Cody would have expected. I don't think Richie Hogan doesn't toe the line. I think he's the ultimate and consummate professional. I think he's been a fantastic. I'm not going to even begin to try and measure what he's given to the game. Like, you know, he's been phenomenal. But I've always gotten the sense from his interviews and things after All-Ireland finals and after games that Richie, he kind of walks his own walk, you know. He definitely doesn't bow down to Brian Cody. And there was a barb or 2 over the years back and forth between them. And I think that when things aren't maybe going so well, and there could be an opportunity to bring him back in, or there could be an opportunity to maybe play with him a little bit more, I don't know sometimes if that relationship isn't as strong as it could be, how much that impacts whether he even gets a look in or not. I don't know, would that be unprofessional of Brian Cody to even suggest that? I don't know, are these things just working away in the subconscious? But I feel that has been a little bit of an aspect of the relationship. I don't know what it's like, so I'm just wondering about it. I'd imagine it's the fact that he's not playing well, so he's just not on the team, you know. Yeah, it certainly seems to be as simple as that. Like when you talk about the burden coming off TJ Reid, Adrian Mullen has been the name on everybody's lips so far this summer, Diarmuid. He's an incredible talented team. He's somebody who all of a sudden, that Kilkenny used to be able to do this, where a player used to come through the conveyor belt and they only needed 1 or 2 of them every year, that if people were worried about the talent drying up in Kilkenny, this guy is the very antithesis of it. He seems to be, yeah. Looking at him with the Shamrocks this year as well, it was the same thing. He just plays with a freedom, and there's a cheekiness, a bowelness to him that you kind of like in his play as well. You can see there's a bit of an edge to him. I'm pretty sure there's a couple of them, 3 or 4 at the minute, and they kind of each have that hallmark. But I thought he was very quiet, that he was going to be under pressure actually against Wexford after the first half. Looking at it, I didn't think he was going so well, because I've been looking out for him this year to see how he was going to get on. But he certainly, the way he took the goal, the way his manner changed, and the confidence that he developed after that, that's sometimes just all a young player like that needs. Especially in a team where, they're not coming in, Owen, the way you were talking about, where when you came in before, you came in as 1 or 2 amongst 13 absolute legends, whereas now when you come in, he has to get his shoulder to the wheel as quickly as possible, and he seems to be doing that. He certainly does. Just to finish up on a couple of Wexford bits, there's been some interesting stuff said this week. Richie Power said that, I think Wexford would struggle if they went back to 15 on 15. Now, he did say they're so used to the system and are brilliant at playing it, but do you think if this was a straight 15 on 15 matchup, it would be a fairly non-event, that Kilkenny would have a huge favouritism over Wexford? I'd love to see it. I don't know. I'd love to see it. I think that they've played now. I mean, Shane Reck is probably going to come in for Damien. I think that they're playing now with a confidence in possession that, okay, if you took Kevin Foley out, maybe that confidence wouldn't be there. But I think they're able to take their men on now in a way that they weren't before. And I would love to see him going back to 15 on 15. I don't want them to do it. I'd love to see what would happen if they did it. I think like Liam D. O'Keefe in midfield, Liam Og, I think had a little bit of a quieter game the last day, in fairness, but Diarmuid O'Keefe in midfield is probably the top midfielder in the country at the moment for me. And again, he's allied by the fact that Kevin Foley is bringing a lot of ball out. And Matt O'Hanlon, I thought, did a superb job on TJ Reid. just man to man. But I suppose all of that is, each time I say it, is tempered with the fact that Kevin Foley is sitting around there and helping those matters. So it'll be an interesting one. Up front, they will be well able for it. Jack O'Connor, Lee Chin, Rory O'Connor in the half-forward line. I mean, they'd be able for any half-back line in the country. Inside, then, that's where it would strengthen. That's where Wexford would strengthen, because you'd have 3 inside instead of 2. Maybe we don't have... Maybe we're one top-class forward short for that 15 on 15, and maybe this actually serves us from that regard as well. But yeah, it'd be an interesting one.
Well, I dare say Derek McGrath wouldn't feel the same way. In his column this morning, he's sticking up for Davies' system. He's saying that Wexford's scoring average since Davies' arrival has steadily risen to 24.8 per game. He's talking about how they can potentially approach the game this weekend, and he talks about Waterford playing in the 2010 All-Ireland semi-final, and how Derek McGrath might actually, or how Derek McGrath talks about how Davy might utilise this. And he says, Chin to 11 potentially with licence to roam, taking Pádraig Walsh away from a sitting area, Rory O'Connor and Liam Oak providing the dogs of war cover at 10 and 12 for a zonal backline as Liam Ryan takes his chances, but Colin Fennelly and Matthew O'Hanlon and Paddy Foley bringing savage concentration to marking roles on TJ Reid and Walter Walsh. That is a very in-depth thing by Derek McGrath I appreciate Diarmuid, but is there truth in what he's saying there? Is there an Achilles heel there in Kilkenny somewhere?
I think there is. I think there definitely is. I don't think they've. I just don't think they've. I don't think they've synced up. I mean, I can't. I don't read the game at the same depth as Derek does in that regard. Like, I don't think. I just don't see the standard that Kilkenny require to dominate Wexford. I think Wexford actually have a better hurlers at the moment. I don't think we have necessarily ironed out all of the things that we need to in terms of the spirit and the attitude that Brian Cody always talks about. I think that because they've demanded that totally over the years, they've got that further down. But yeah, my little son wants to have his way on the radio here.
We leave you to it, but give us a one-word prediction on Sunday.
Yeah, Jesus, Wexford in my heart, but with the wide open fields of Croke Park, I'm a bit worried, but Wexford in my heart for sure. Yeah, I'm not sure. Go on. I have to say Wexford, but Jesus, I think we're going to struggle as well, because Kilkenny do love Croke Park and it brings the best out of them. But I'm delighted we're up there. I'm delighted we're with Kilkenny again in Leinster final. I'm delighted that we've come to life in this way again. It's an important thing for Wexford people. So I just can't wait for the game.
Listen, Diarmuid, thanks a million for taking the call this morning. Appreciate it, and enjoy the rest of your morning there.
Yeah, thanks, lads.
OTB AM is brought to you by Avantcard, powered by MasterCard. We're going to be talking about the Super 8s next, but he's right in what he's saying there about the open pitches at Croke Park. Larry O'Gorman this week saying it's a huge advantage to Kilkenny. The experience of Paul Murphy, Pádraig Walsh and Colin Fennelly. These guys know what it's like to march out of Croke Park. And from our point of view, we have the likes of Lee Chin, Liam Ryan and Matthew O'Hanlon. These guys have been there, but they haven't really won any silverware in Croke Park. So it's not just the Dubs whose home ground is Croke Park. According to Larry O'Gorman, it's also Kilkenny.
Yeah. Well, it's a factor. It is a factor, and even back in there last week, like Maradona was saying to me, like, is it really much bigger, and it's not even that. It just seems bigger, and it's just the vastness of it, and the areas of space and how games can get kind of confined onto one spot, and especially obviously in hurling and what Wexford are trying to do to keep it compact. They don't want too much space out left and right, and obviously Kilkenny are going to try to take advantage of that.
Right, some John Giles Gold on last night's show. Here he is on facing a 17-year-old Diego Maradona.
I had retired the season before. Right, I did the wave and that, and I was at West Brom and I'd been very busy. I was player manager at West Brom, and I thought this is enough. And then I had a season rest, and we were playing England at Wembley in the match. And I was feeling really good, and I had said I'd retired. And Noel Cantwell and a couple of the Irish players said, look, I think you should be playing. This is a big match for Ireland. So I started playing again. So when I finished with Argentina, I didn't make a fuss of it at all. I didn't want to. But that was it. But Maradona was, what he went on to do, Nathan. I didn't see the documentary, but I read a bit about it where the lad was explaining, who was a friend of his, he called him Diego and he called him Maradona. So Diego was a different personality whatsoever to Maradona, which I can understand that, because I think he had no guidance. He came out of a rough, tough place in Argentina to go to Barcelona originally, and then to Naples. I mean, he was an absolute genius, Maradona. I mean, Maradona's up there with the recent. Ronaldo and all these guys. I mean, he was a genius. I think he had no guidance. He was one of the first superstars to go abroad from a rough area, but a genius at what he did.
Yeah, genius indeed. John Giles there talking about Diego Maradona last night on Thursday Night Football with John Giles. The full thing, of course, available on youtube.com/offtheball, and it's also available on all your podcast apps. You haven't seen the new documentary. It comes highly recommended, Anthony, to anybody out there who hasn't seen it.
Yeah, no, I haven't seen it yet. Yeah, looking forward to it. I'll get an hour or two carved out and sit down and watch it.
Yeah, you should do. It's absolutely brilliant. I should tell you that Off the Ball, in partnership with My Taxi, is hosting a very special event on the 4th of July in the Alex Hotel, and you can be there. Guests in the night will include Irish legend Paul McGrath, former Irish international Jamie Heaslip, performance coach for the Dublin Hurlers Cliona O'Connor, and former world champion boxer Andy Lee. This is an exclusive off-air event, so the only way you can see it is by being there. Tickets are free, but you must register and show proof on the day, either by printing tickets or having them downloaded on your smartphone. Check out offtheball.com/events to get your ticket to the event with our partners My Taxi Business, soon to become Free Now Business. Register today for a free business account. Right, qualifiers this weekend. 4 games: Kildare against Tyrone, Mayo against Armagh, Laois against Offaly, Westmeath against Clare. They're all on tomorrow. We'll start with the best game, because it's going to be Mayo against Armagh. This isn't a great matchup for Mayo.
No, it's not. It's definitely not. They lucked out by the fact that where it's on, but it is definitely not. This is not. I have to say, the down game was a potential banana skin. We kind of already highlighted that, before the game. They came through it well. But this is Armagh have really impressed me. They've been building very, very well over the last number of years with McGuinness. Unlucky against Cavan, you would say, and are now battle hardened. Have a good few games under the belt, and will give Mayo their fill of it, no doubt about it. Got some really good talent. Obviously, young Burns is a serious player. The usual stuff up front, they have quality, and I've always liked McGuinness. I think he's a very practical manager. He's a guy who thinks long and hard about the game. He's a guy who thinks he's quite inventive and quite, kind of forward thinking with regard to the game. Now sometimes that can go with him, or sometimes it can go against him, in the sense of he'll decide on a particular tactic or a particular position, and he might just say, that position is now whatever. I remember years ago meeting him in a coffee shop, and he was just over Kildare, and we were talking about the modern day midfielder, and he was just saying, it's finished. The modern day, the big tall man, 6'2" plus, is over. You need mobility around midfield. And this was really before. This was still when there was a lot of big men in midfield, just catching big kickouts. And he was reading Moneyball at the time. He had the book, and I was referencing it with him, and he was saying, it's all about the stats and seeing how many. And he was kind of regarding the kickouts and how kickouts were becoming so important. So he was well ahead even in his thinking then, and he was seeing how the start and the genesis of all of that and where it would go. And I think he tried to bring a lot of that into even Kildare, and he was probably just a bit ahead of his time, because ultimately, if you have a big, tall, really good fella, he's probably going to be better than a small fella.
I was about to say that you can read Moneyball all you want, but this might come down to a battle of height. Because
Correct.
When I say it's a bad matchup for Mayo, I'm talking about that full back line, which isn't the tallest, coming up against Andrew Murnan, Rian O'Neill and Jamie Clark. Now, of course, it's going to be mostly the former two who might be the ball winners inside that full forward line, but this could be route one. You talk about Jarlath Hogue as well, up against the midfield that's been decimated with injuries as well. Things have been trending in Armagh's favour now for the last few weeks. Yeah,
absolutely. And I don't know, and maybe this is always the way with Mayo going through the qualifiers, but you get a sense that they have to be, and the qualifiers is all about momentum and building it and getting through, but it's also about panel, and it's also about that you get a couple of guys who are just coming to the fore, and you unearth a few talents that will become the next year's big players, and he really needs to do that, Horan. And we discussed this before about going back to the old guard, and the old guard, looking at the old guard will bail you out, and I think they will to a certain degree, but then I think when push comes to shove on some of the really intense battles, that's potentially where ultimately you fail, and that's just a matter of life. I think McGeeney has a really good mix of youth and experience. They're quite a young team, and I think he has a team now that are really playing for each other, that are very confident in each other as well. Physically very strong, conditioned well. You'd expect that from him. Can mix it either way with you, but they've got some serious talent up front, and they've got that. If you go back to that old thing, like Stevie McDonald, Ronan Clark, the O'Rourkes, the McKeevers, like whatever about the steel in that Armagh team, the McEntees, there was lads who could kick points for fun all over the team. You had threats everywhere. Like if Stevie wasn't doing it and Oisin wasn't doing it or Ronan weren't doing it, well, Paddy McKeever would come in and do it for you. Or the McEntees would chip in a few scores, or the O'Rourkes would. So you'd a lot of fellas who could kick points. Before, a lot of teams had halfbacks and fullbacks who were well able to come up the field and kick points, as well as your midfielders. Like McGrane was well able to kick scores. And I think he's starting to do that now. He's starting to share that out. He's starting to have fellas who are able to come in and just pick off points and alleviate a little bit of pressure from a team that might just decide, well, we're going to sit down on Clark and we're really going to kind of take out the space, to go back to the Wexford idea or even the Limerick idea, that we're just going to hone in on that full forward line and really restrict them. They've a lot of fellas that can kick long range scores.
Who's going to win?
I think Armagh will do it. I think Armagh will take them. It's as I say, I think the venue has a big factor. But I think Armagh might cause an upset here.
Kildare against Tyrone also tomorrow, of course, clashing with the Irish Derby at the Curragh. Tyrone are an interesting one because they've been back and forth between different styles within games this year, but maybe that's exactly what they need. Maybe that's exactly what every team needs, the ability to have a plan A and a plan B, and really what we've just been witnessing during this championship is Tyrone trying to find out that perfect balance.
I think so. I think, when you look at the Donegal game, the manner in which it was played, Petey Hart he's the heartbeat of that team, excuse the pun, but he's not only a leader. I think he's a player that at when they need moments, he more than likely comes up with them. And I think a number of the other players like Matty Donnelly and guys like this, they look to him to create things. And if you watch any of the big moments, or any of the majorly big moments of Tyrone over the last number of years, he's had a hand in something along the line to get that happening. And I think they motor an awful lot better. They just seem much more balanced when he's playing. And for Mickey Hart and his management team, he's a guy that they can put into different areas to either create or to cause issues or to block up things. And they have unbelievable, they have obviously massive confidence that he can mix it. He's not a guy who just decides that if he's playing 5 or 6 or 7 that he's just going to, he'll be on the ball. He'll get himself involved. So he's a massive player for them. And I think the Donegal thing, that when that it kind of unravelled a bit for them, very quickly. Now that was a worrying thing in that it unravelled. When the game plan wasn't working, it unravelled. So I think Hart will realise that and say, okay, well, we need to potentially have game plan 2 and 3 organised. Kildare are on a different journey, and I think they have a lot of talent. I think they have some steel. They've got some very, very talented players, but the fact of the matter is I think they need a bit more steel. And I think I'd expect Tyrone to get back going on this one. I really would. I think it'll be a high-scoring game, but I think Tyrone ultimately will come out the winners of it.
Yeah, it's interesting. Reading Peter Canavan's column this morning saying that they left 3-7 behind them against the Dubs. Kildare did, which is kind of like a statement of intent and stuff like that. But then again, how much did Meath leave behind the Dubs? And
they did.
You leave a lot behind the Dubs.
You do. Like, I mean, the forward line now for Kildare are good. You know, McCormick is a seriously good player. Like, I mean, the time when Kildare played Meath and Navan in the league, he went off injured. And the whole place breathed a sigh of relief because no one could handle him in the first half. Like, he's a serious talent, and to be fair, he should have got a goal or two against Dublin. They have got that, but I think it's the other end that I'd be a little bit more worried about.
For sure. Laois against Offaly. Which way are you calling this? It's already
Offaly.
Really?
Yeah, I was mightily impressed with Offaly in Navan. Like, they should have beaten me that day. Their kick out, the goalkeeper was as good a goalkeeper and as good a kick out that I've seen across the country.
Right.
Like, he was absolutely nailed on with his kick outs. Like, better than Cluxton. He was passing the guys. There was a lot of kind of movement, and as guys were running away at full speed, he was literally popping the ball onto their chests. Like, he set so many attacks off from kickouts. And you know, if anyone is either at the game or has an ability to see it, you know, just watch out for him because he was fantastic. I really thought he was brilliant. Now, ultimately, Meath pulled ahead because a high ball came into the square. And he unfortunately dropped it, and there was a I think it ended up being a penalty. Yeah, he dragged down one of the Meath players, but up to that point, he was absolutely imperious. And their own press on the Meath kick out was very, very impressive. They zonal marked. They caused serious problems on the Meath kick out. They ran out of steam, to be honest, in that last game, in 10-15 minutes ago, and they didn't have a whole pile to bring off the bench. But with Anton Sullivan, with a couple of fellas, they've got obviously McNamee, they've got a really, really good forward balance. They've McNamee, and I can't remember the young lad he has in beside him. He is lightning quick, and they work off each other really well. They've got a nice settled defence. Decent enough midfield, mobile midfield. So they play the game well, and Mahon, to be fair, has them motoring well. I think they'll have too much for Laois.
Right. Must watch that goalkeeper, Paddy Dunnigan. He spent time at Athlone Town for a few years and made his debut for Offaly last year. So that's a name to remember clearly.
Yeah.
Finally, then Westmeath against Clare.
I think Westmeath will win that.
I think you're going against the grain on both of these. I haven't checked odds or anything, but I would imagine Clare and Laois are slight favourites for the games. Maybe not. I could be mistaken. They're tight ones to call.
Yeah, I think that one is a very, very tight one. Like, I mean, to be honest with you, I didn't see much of Clare this year. They had up and down results in Division 2. You know, some decent ones, some not so good ones. I don't know if it's a situation where you have a management team that have been there quite a while now. Westmeath have Cooney in. It's a bit fresher, I would feel. And is it a situation? I think Westmeath have been building. To be honest with you, I think they're improving, and they're getting some players back. So yeah, it's a hard one, but I'm going to go with Westmeath on that one.
So we're going for Tyrone, Armagh, Offaly and Westmeath. They're your 4 picks for the weekend. Right, It is 9:06 on this Friday morning, the Sports Breakfast Show from Off the Ball here. It's OTB AM. We're back with Egan after this.
Join Bruce Betting now for a risk-free first bet up to €100. That's right. New Irish accounts can enjoy a risk-free first bet up to €100. So if your first bet loses, we'll refund your stake with a free bet. Now that's giving you more. Bruce Betting. In-store, online, and now on your phone. T's and C's apply. Please gamble responsibly. See dunlewy.net.
The Sport Ireland campus Blanchardstown is the home of Irish sport, not just for our athletes but for you in the community. Check out our amazing offers for families with kids camps, sport academies and birthday parties. Or for adults, why not join our gym with a 50-metre pool? Or your club, school, friends can book one of our world-class indoor or outdoor facilities, including our brand new field sport covered pitches. Find out more on nationalsportscampus.ie.
There's been talk in the papers last while about this investment maybe coming in from Diarmuid Desmond. Would you have any kind of, would you be hearing much information on that, or what's the situation there?
No, I think if we as a club can attract people of Diarmuid Desmond's calibre, it can only be a positive for the club and for the country. I think he's obviously a an unbelievable businessman, and he's ran Celtic for how many years, and how successful they've been. I don't know where it is, and I'm not sure what stage it's at, but if someone like Diarmuid Desmond can get involved in any capacity, it can only be a positive.
And then finally, the talk of the last couple of days about the All-Ireland League, there's some backers coming in, they're talking about TV deals, that kind of stuff. Is it possible, do you think, and is it something that would be good as well to go to an All-Ireland League rather than just the teams in the Republic?
I think
Derry City.
Yeah, no, I think it would be. I think it'd be a real step forward for us. I know there's a lot of little detail that needs to be ironed out in terms of European places and prize monies and stuff, and can governments help, and does Brexit get involved with the border and stuff like that? Does all that come into play? I'm not sure, but on a football purely point, it definitely help. I remember, I think I won the Setanta Cup 2 or 3 times, and I remember the games playing Linfield away and Cliftonville and Glentoran. They're really good games, and I just think it could attract more fans that maybe don't come to League of Ireland every week.
Stephen Bradley there speaking to Off the Ball. Stephen Doyle yesterday. It's interesting, Phil Egan, good morning by the way, that this is gathering a bit of momentum now, that you never know how the managers are going to react when the All-Ireland League is mentioned, because ultimately there's a status quo there already, and some people might want to protect that, but clearly Stephen Bradley is very, very open to the idea.
You wonder what the reaction would be if a manager just came out and said, I think it's a terrible idea. But the problem with the League of Ireland at the moment is, like, as good as this season has been and the interest has gone up, there is so much room for improvement. So all managers and a lot of clubs, I suppose, are open to the idea, and they're willing to listen, like the FAI are willing to listen to Kieran Lucid and what the plan is, and all offers are on the table at the moment. But
you're going to listen to the offers if there's that much money proposed on, like the Lucid offer.
That's the key, the money. And if you can say to clubs, this is how much money you could get, and it's a lot bigger than what they're getting at the moment, of course they're going to be interested.
Mm-hmm. The trips across the border as well, they'll make for a serious rivalry. I don't think there's any question about that. The main thing,
a hard border,
whatever sort of border it may be, as long as it's somewhat penetrable for this to happen.
Yeah. But that's going to be an issue,
huge issue,
massive issue to it. Like, I mean, you could draft all of this up, and next thing a hard border does come into play, and that's going to be a disaster.
You have to scrap it all.
I would feel you would straight away.
Like, the main thing on the footballing sense that is kind of against this is the European spots.
Yeah.
And really the only way to battle against that, because the European spots are important, not just for the idea of playing in Europe, it's the money for in Europe.
Like even the Cardiff Met Police, I was reading an article about them that just for getting to the preliminary round of the Europa League, so they were playing Progress Niederkorn, and they were getting 190 grand.
Wow.
So that's massive money. And like, for members of that club, you have to pay £150, and they were saying, like, will it be waived? And the guy in charge is like, no, we've got principles at this club, so everyone will still have to pay their £150 membership. But 190 grand. So to get into any round of the Europa League for any club on this island, it's massive.
But the proposal is that it'll be 220,000 for the team who finishes bottom of this new All-Ireland League Premiership. Like, that's a game changer straight away. You would happily say take back one of the European spaces.
Yeah, if that is actually going to happen.
And amalgamation is like the talk of the hour now. It's Belgium linking up with the Netherlands, is it at this point, or mooted to happen further down the line. That maybe they're starting to realise that these super leagues, the Premier Leagues, the Liga is there just on a runaway train. There's no way you're ever going to catch them, but perhaps you can hold your own to a certain extent by amalgamation.
Just wait till Celtic are in the Premier League.
Well, or the All-Ireland Ireland League, All Ireland plus Scotland League, which is the one. I don't know what name they'd come up with for that one. What is going on this morning, Phil?
Well, obviously a big day for the Irish boxers in Minsk, but by the time the first fight starts, we could have a 7th medal, because Chloe and Sam McGee are currently in action against the Netherlands, and that's in the mixed doubles of the badminton, a quarter-final. So a win would guarantee a medal for the Donegal siblings, and obviously would guarantee a place in the semi-finals. In terms of the Irish boxers, they've already guaranteed 6 medals at the Games. World champion Kelly Harrington is one of the 6 in semi-final action. She's due in the ring at 5 this evening. Regan Buckley, Kurt Walker Walker and Michael Nevin will also be in the evening session. You're looking at between 6 and 8 o'clock Irish time. Michaela Walsh is the first Irish boxer in action just after midday, and then Grania Walsh, no relation to Michaela, is due between the ropes at around 1 o'clock. So they have the medals. It's just a case of getting to the final and maybe changing the colour of them. You'd imagine there will be a few that'll get to the final. Certainly you'd be looking at Kelly Harrington to get to the final, and I'd be surprised if there wasn't at least another 2 or 3 that reach finals, given how good the form is for the Irish boxers. Story this morning that has broken: Warren Gatland has a new job. So we know he's going to leave the Welsh setup after the World Cup in Japan. He's obviously going to take charge of the Lions Tour for South Africa in 2021, so that's going to be his 3rd Lions Tour. But he's agreed a deal to become the head coach of the Chiefs. He signed a 4-year deal, but they're going to give him the tour off so he can take charge of the Lions. So he'll be able to take some time off and
mid-season break.
Yeah, go to South Africa for the Lions Tour.
It's a fairly lenient employer there, isn't it?
Yeah.
Shows the appeal of Warren Gatland.
I was thinking the Exeter Chiefs. I was like, that's
yeah.
That's a bit of a drop down for him, but hey.
Great coup for the Exeter Chiefs. But yeah, no, he's going home. He's going back to New Zealand, and you wonder what this does in terms of, will he ever get the New Zealand job, or is this the stepping stone maybe? Or
clearly it is, or clearly it would be. He's certainly the whole idea of out of sight, out of mind. If you're out of mind in Wales, then going back down to the Chiefs, you'd certainly be in mind for the future All Blacks job. He wants that gig. There's no way you do the Lions 3 times in a row unless you're on route to something bigger.
Definitely. Yeah. No, he is. He's probably late 50s, is
55. He's 55, yeah.
Okay, so he's still young enough to do it.
Yeah, and you think of the Lions Tour in New Zealand when they absolutely ripped him apart in the New Zealand press. The clown's face, the nose, the red nose. So be an interesting turn of events. But the Airtricity League Premier Division returns tonight, and it's back after a week's break. At the top of the table clash, you heard there from Stephen Bradley, the Rovers manager, Shamrock Rovers manager. Shamrock Rovers go into tonight's clash with Dundalk 5 points behind the league leaders, so tonight could have a huge say in where the title ends up. You'd imagine if Dundalk win, there's a fair chance they're going to retain it. Even if Rovers do win, you'd still have Dundalk as the favourites, and you think that one stage Rovers were 13 points clear of Dundalk. Some people had given Rovers the league. Some people who had been in this studio had crowned.
Are you speaking about yourself here?
No.
Who'd crowned?
Didn't Johnny Ward crown?
Did he crown Rovers?
Yeah, he said it's done, it's over, and he has not been let forget that.
Himself and Dundalk fans have a very, very strong relationship, Johnny Ward.
Yeah, he's been reminded of it plenty of times. Kick-off in Tala tonight, by the way, is 8 o'clock. Also an 8 o'clock start in Ballybuffet, where Finn Harps play Sligo Rovers. Then at 7:45, you've got Cork City against Derry City at Turner's Cross. UCD take on St Pat's and Belfield, and Waterford are at home to Bohemians. England are into the semi-finals of the Women's World Cup in France. They beat Norway 3-0 last night, thanks to goals from Jill Scott, Ellen White and Lucy Bronze. They could even afford the luxury of missing a late penalty. Nikita Paris missed from the spot, second spot kick that she's missed at the tournament. But Phil Neville's side will now play France, the hosts, or the defending champions USA. That is a mouth-watering quarter-final which takes place in Paris tonight. And the general feeling is if whoever wins this one is going to win the tournament. But after watching England last night, maybe not so.
They'll cause problems for France or for the United States. There's no question about it. And like we had this conversation outside, I thought England were dominant last night. I thought that perhaps a couple of the chances that they coughed up was a little bit of, I don't want to say nonchalance or anything like that, but
maybe like just a 10-minute spell where they're a little bit lax.
A little bit. And I don't know, I don't think Norway caused them enough problems to ever be in touch, ever be with a shout of getting to the semi-final. Last night I thought England were far superior to Norway, and I didn't expect that. I expected Norway to be a hell of a lot better. So I think this shows that England have every chance of putting it up to the States or France. Like football's coming home.
Yeah. It's just like last year
again.
Yeah, absolutely. And
this is a much tougher draw than last year.
Yeah, big time. And I was very impressed with the central defence. The doubts over Steph Alton and Millie Bright both started, and
brilliant on the ball, so calm and composed as well. Yeah.
But even I think Bright, there's times you see her get isolated one-on-one, but she's just so like such a presence there that you can't get by.
Physically strong.
Yeah,
she is.
Threat like from set pieces as well. They were quite clever with their set pieces last night. Obviously, the highlight was the goal from Lucy Bronze. Like,
it's class.
Nice.
Goalkeeper should have got it, obviously.
Yeah, do you know what?
Ball goes between your hands, you have to be saving that.
But I just think the power, and also as well, the first time I looked at it, I thought it took a deflection, but it didn't. But it went through a few bodies. So,
and she sees it late, to be fair. But as far as I'm concerned, if the ball goes between your hands as a goalkeeper, you have to be saving that. It's as simple as that. Call tonight for us.
I've picked France from the start, so I'm going to stick with them. But I would probably be leaning 60-40 in the USA's favour.
Oh, so you changed your mind?
No, I'll stick with France. But if somebody said, like, how do you think it, like, you know, if you were picking who are the favourites, like USA are the favourites. Mm-hmm. But I'm just wondering, can the hosts, the home crowd, rile up the French team to put in a huge performance? We'll see.
If France win, it's a great result for Donald Trump. Just takes away all the sort of unnecessary, or in my view, very necessary sort of awkwardness for him if the United States go on to win.
There'd be a lot of people hoping the USA win just so Megan Rapinoe can give it another bit of verbals to Donald Trump. Speaking of hosts, Brazil obviously are hosting the Copa America. They're into the semi-finals. They beat Paraguay on penalties. It finished 0-0 after 90 minutes. Straight into penalties, no extra time. And it was Gabriel Jesus who scored the winning penalty. He also spared the blushes of Roberto Firmino, who missed. He missed his spot kick, actually knocked it wide, but Alisson saved one of the spot kicks. So Brazil will play Argentina or Venezuela in the semi-final. Those two meet tonight, and then on the other side of the draw you have Colombia and Chile and Uruguay and Peru. And just before I finish up, day 2 of the Irish Derby Festival at the Curragh. The feature today is the Group 1 Pretty Polly Stakes, and racing gets underway at 3:15 today.
Good stuff. Thanks for that, Phil. It is time for the most eagerly anticipated segment of OTB AM every single morning. It's time for Deal or No Deal. We've got Chelsea rumours, we've got Manchester United rumours, we've got Arsenal rumours, Newcastle's next boss, and European football rumours coming up in this exclusive episode of Deal or No Deal. Are you familiar with the format of Deal or No Deal?
Yes, I am.
Well,
the series, the actual show.
I was about to say, well, it's exactly the same as that, but in reality, it's nothing like Deal or No Deal. I basically read out a load of transfer rumours, and you and Phil can tell me whether or not it's a deal for the club or no deal for the club, or in fact the player. So we'll start, as I say, with Chelsea rumours. Manchester City and Germany forward Leroy Sané remains Bayern Munich's top transfer target this summer, despite a recent lack of progress on a deal. We're going with Bayern Munich's angle here. Deal or no deal? Is it going to happen?
It could.
Deal.
I think it could happen, and it'd be a great deal for Bayern Munich.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a strange one for Sané, such a good player, but didn't go to the World Cup, and had a strange season where he was left out of big games. But then when he comes on, you see how good he is. He's a brilliant player, but maybe he thinks if I go to Bayern Munich, the biggest club in Germany, this will be one way of guaranteeing that I'm obviously going to get the first choice in the German national team.
Remarkably, this is because Chelsea have rejected Bayern's latest offer for 18-year-old England winger Callum Hudson-Odoi. Surely Leroy Sané will be ahead of you, ahead of Callum Hudson-Odoi on the wish list.
What age is Sané? Sané's only a young guy,
23.
Isn't he? Oh yeah, absolutely.
If you're getting a winger about to enter his prime.
Yeah, also as well, like Hudson-Odoi, see, Chelsea are in that position where obviously they can't sign players, but Hudson-Odoi is injured. He did his Achilles, so Chelsea might be thinking maybe we do cash in on an injured player, but I don't know. What I've seen of him I really like, and I'd like to see him stay with Chelsea, and you'd imagine Frank Lampard will give him game time.
There's a full-back crisis at Chelsea Football Club. Left-back Marcus Alonso and right-back David Zappacosta are looking to leave the club this summer, says the Star. If you're Chelsea, deal or no deal on selling these two?
Get rid of them both. Good deal.
Good deal. Good deal.
Yeah, I'll go with it.
Mateo Kovacic, what's the latest on this? This is not a deal or no deal, this is an update, Phil.
It's done. And people are wondering how Chelsea have got away with signing a player when they've got a transfer ban. They've 2 in their transfer ban, but it's the same with the Higuain deal. They're loan deals. So once you trigger the clause of making the signing permanent before the loan runs out at the end of the month, which is obviously in a few days' time, then you don't have to register the player again. So that's how they did the loophole. And
this is a workaround.
Yeah, and they obviously had this in mind, but he's not exactly a major signing for them. Like, I wouldn't put him in the first choice Chelsea midfield. There was that strange thing that Sarri had where he'd start his midfield three, so it was always Jorginho and N'Golo Kante, and it was another. So it was either Ross Barkley or Kovacic, and if he started Barkley, he'd take him off and replace him with Kovacic, and vice versa. And Loftus-Cheek was left out. I actually would have put Loftus-Cheek ahead of either of them.
Right, okay, so you almost think that Kovacic is a needless pawn in all of this. You would be just as good as last season with Barkley and Loftus-Cheek there.
Yeah, I'd prefer Loftus-Cheek. I know he got an injury as well.
Let's talk Manchester United. Sporting boss Marcel Kaiser believes the chances of keeping Portugal midfielder Bruno Fernandes at the club are slim, with Manchester United among those interested in the 24-year-old. This is from Record in Portuguese. We've successfully translated it, and we've given you the deal or no deal proposition.
Did you learn some Portuguese when you were at the Web Summit?
Yes, I did. went to see Benfica play, learned lots of Portuguese. That's all I did over there. Deal or no deal, Bruno Fernandes, Manchester United.
No deal. It would be a great deal for them, but I don't think it's going to happen.
Is this just because nobody wants to play for Man United anymore?
There's a bit of that. They do, and the money is right. There's also been a lot of talk about Liverpool going in for this guy. And then the subplot there is Rafa Camacho, the young right back, has just signed for Sporting from Liverpool.
Right.
Is that a sweetener?
Could be. Usually those two things would go hand in hand, and you wouldn't wait for so long for the other side of that to happen. But I don't know. Manchester United are considering a move for Barcelona and France defender Samuel Umtiti, 25. This is deal or no deal. It's a deal from Barcelona's perspective. They want to get rid of Umtiti. Deal or no deal from Manchester United's perspective?
I think that's a deal.
You think so? Are you not living in 2 years ago? What do you think?
That'd be a great deal.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Well, he was linked with Arsenal and desperately wanted Arsenal to sign him.
Any centre half is an addition, like a welcomed addition to United's squad. Although, funny enough, I saw Victor Lindelof was linked with a move to Barcelona.
So that could be your sweetener that you spoke about a moment ago.
All about
these two things will happen at the
That's
one
what
time.
the transfer market is all about, sweeteners.
We spoke about this earlier, Anthony. I'll put this to you, Phil. United look likely to reject Inter Milan's proposed £62.7 million deal to sign the 26-year-old Belgium striker Romelu Lukaku, first on loan and then permanently. £62.7 million. You're Manchester United, deal or no deal?
That's a deal, you have to take it. The best business I think United could do this summer would be to offload Lukaku, Pogba and Sanchez. If they got rid of those three, because
chances are they might get rid of none of them.
And that's a worry, because what's going to happen with Solskjaer, he needs time. There's going to be some bad days for United next season. When things go bad, these three players tend to play up. And you can see they're signing younger players, obviously Wan-Bissaka, Daniel James. Younger players will probably be more likely to
toe the line.
Exactly.
Yeah, and believe in the bigger plan.
Yeah, and the time is on their side.
Yeah.
Whereas
Apart from their fact that they are, even if they were playing top of their game, but had the potential, that I'd get rid of all three of those.
But see, if they're playing top of their game, then they think
at a better price.
They think as well, I'm playing so well here, actually I should be playing for someone else.
Yes, exactly. And I can dictate the dressing room
for sure.
Like, I mean, I don't know. It's an awful pity that you didn't have something like a World Cup that Pogba might shine in it, and then you could ramp up the price and you could say good luck. You know, it would have been perfectly timed, but unfortunately they don't.
Got four more that I want to focus on here. We're going to have to go through these quickly. France midfielder Adrien Rabiot, who has summer target for Manchester United, looks to have edged closer to a move away from Paris Saint-Germain after the 24-year-old's mother revealed the club have not made any offers to tempt her son away. Once the mother starts to talk, you know you're in trouble. Manchester United, deal or no deal, Adrien Rabiot?
No deal. And actually, if you throw him into the dressing room that we just talked about, that will be a disaster.
Yeah.
Why? Well, he basically down tools at PSG.
Good point. Good point.
A talent, but you know, basically went in shouting the odds, thinking this is what I deserve, and he hadn't really done much.
Anyone who has their mother doing their transfer talk at 24 years of age
is a smart man.
Yeah. Is a guy you want to watch carefully. You don't fancy being Solskjaer in there. Next thing she comes through the door with a stiletto in hand.
Why ain't you playing him?
Yeah, no.
Celtic boss Neil Lennon has told Arsenal they'll need to pay a lot more money if they are to secure a deal for Scotland left-back Kieran Tierney, 22. Deal or no deal on a bigger amount of money for Kieran Tierney from Arsenal.
What are they offering it?
What were we talking yesterday? Was it 20?
20. I'd say like 25. He's worth it. He's good.
So you think they go to 25 but no further?
Test the water at 25.
25, 30 million, deal or no deal?
Deal.
But Arsenal have no budget.
Give me an answer, deal or no deal?
I'm going to say no deal.
No deal on that, okay.
They spent all their budget on that promo video that they
They
have.
certainly have. Can Kieran Tierney do a good North London accent is the question he needs to be asked when he's signing his contract. Atletico Madrid are considering a move for Real Madrid's Colombia playmaker James Rodriguez with a 27-year-old surplus to requirements at the Bernabeu. This is a great one. If you're Atletico, deal or no deal?
Deal.
Deal?
I think so.
Oh, okay, so there's way back.
He'd be better. You want to show off Real what they were missing.
Meanwhile, Real Madrid remain interested in Kylian Mbappe, but will aim to let him stay at Paris Saint-Germain for another season before penciling in a big money move for the French striker in the summer of 2020, says Marca. Deal or no deal? Obviously for Kylian Mbappe it's a deal. Do you let him wait for another year, or do you just go all in now and sign him?
No, I'd say wait. Yeah, you've got Hazard now.
True. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't think it's going to happen.
Let him wait. Anthony, Phil, thanks a million for popping in this morning.
Cheers,
Appreciate
all.
it. Hopefully your tips all come through for the weekend, Anthony. If you missed anything, you can catch us back on the podcast, or you'll hear some of our highlights across the day on OTB Sports Radio. We launched Off the Ball Sports Radio yesterday on Off the Ball, and we're pretty excited about it. It's Ireland's first fully dedicated sports radio station, and right now the best place to listen is on offtheball.com/radio and the Go Loud app. We'll have all our live content, your favourite Off the Ball podcasts, and OTB Gold, a collection of the very best off-the-ball content since 2002. Now, some of our highlights today on Off the Ball Gold are our Chris Waddle special that was from a roadshow a couple of years ago, our Kilkenny Legends panel with Tommy Walsh, Taggy Fogarty and JJ Delaney. That, for any radio nerds out there, was the first time Tommy Walsh was on Off the Ball. It was his radio debut, so that'll be coming up later on. Shane Lowry's Ballyliffin Masterclass was a brilliant piece with Joe done 12 months ago next week, actually, in the lead up to the Irish Open last year. That's coming up later on. And then, of course, a brilliant 2012 interview with Chris Heron. There are just some of the highlights that you'll find on Ireland's sports radio station over at offtheball.com/radio. Tonight, Friday Night Racing and the Crappy Quiz on News Talk from 7 o'clock. And this weekend, a brilliant Saturday panel lined up with Liam Kearns, Wayne Kieran's, and many more people as well besides. And from 1 o'clock to 6 o'clock, you'll get all that. Same time on Sunday, papers and coverage of the Munster and Leinster hurling finals. We'll chat to you Monday morning at 7:30 on OTB AM. Bye-bye for now.
OTB AM.
Brought to you by Avantcard Reward Plus Credit Card. Powered by MasterCard. Straight up better than your current credit card. Avantcard DAC is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland.